older and older, there's been a significant increase in the number of men over 60 becoming fathers, a 15% increase in just 1 year, and an increase in the number of babies born to foreign parents. But what's really, really concerning is that what's called the total fertility rate, that's the average number of babies that each woman has over her childbearing life, has gone down again. It is now at a record low, just 1.41 children on average per woman. And of course, we need about 2.1 to have a stable population. Now, a lot of people think, well, why don't we want the population to decline? We've been warning about burgeoning population for 50, 60 years now. But I think the really important factor to consider here is it's not really the overall size of the population that matters so much as the proportion of young to old, because that is what we need in order to have enough people working, enough people paying taxes to support people who are retired, to support people who are sick. And that is going down and down and down with huge economic consequences.
Do the figures divide it so that they can say whether the children are of African heritage or of this or of that? Does it tell you those sorts of statistics as well? And if so, what are the... What are they?
Yes, so we know the nationality of mothers who give birth. And in terms of foreign mothers, the greatest number of babies are born to women of Indian and Pakistani heritage. So they are the biggest numbers, the biggest nationalities. But I think what's really important to note is that even with the huge and unpopular levels of immigration that we've had, even with those levels, the birth rate is still falling and the ratio of young to old is still going down.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Good morning, it's 9:30 a.m. on the Friday, the 12th of September, live across the United Kingdom. This is Britain's Newsroom with me, Alex Armstrong, and Miriam Cates.
Now, there's fresh pressure on the government this morning as new figures show that the UK economy failed to grow in July, which is, of course, piling scrutiny on Rachel Reeves ahead of November's budget.
And Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer faces fresh backlash from his own MPs over his handling of the Lord Mandelson scandal.
Well, reports say that Lord Mandelson admitted his friendship with Jeffrey Epstein during the vetting process for the US ambassador role. But Labour MPs are asking why the scandal-prone former cabinet minister was ever appointed in the first place.
Yes, a beleaguered Prime Minister with huge questions about his political judgment. After 2 weeks in a row, he defended first Angela Rayner and then Lord Mandelson, and then both of them had to go.
And new video footage shows Charlie Kirk's killer calmly fleeing the scene as Utah's governor vows to pursue the death penalty and warns the public about social media.
Yes, Vice President J.D. Vance has escorted Kirk's coffin onto Air Force Two, flying him home to Arizona with his grieving widow, Erica, by his side.
And newly appointed Deputy Prime Minister David Lammy faces criticism as Turning Point's, the youth organisation founded by Charlie Kirk, accuses him of fuelling hate.
And the Oxford Union condemns their president-elect after he mocked Charlie Kirk's death just weeks after debating him in Oxford.
And anger in Leeds as the Home Office is accused of a secret plan to move illegal migrants into student flats, with locals given no say in the proposals.
And Prince Harry is in Kyiv as the Duke pledges support for wounded soldiers. But some are speculating that Prince Harry has now overtaken William in King Charles' good books. Now, Alex, for those of our viewers who were watching yesterday, we went live to an urgent question in the House of Commons where it was announced live while we were on air on Britain's Newsroom that Mandelson was to be withdrawn as ambassador. And we happened to have Michael Gove, former Cabinet Secretary, in the studio. And as he'd walked in the morning, he said, Mandelson won't last the day. Well, he only lasted 5 minutes after Michael Gove got into the studio. I wonder if there's a coincidence.
Yeah, well, that's how well Phase 2 is going, isn't it, everybody? But, of course, on top of that, this manhunt for Charlie Kirk's assassin underway. I can't believe it, Miriam. I cannot believe they still haven't caught this man with all the camera phones, with all the Ring doorbells, with all the CCTV. What is taking them so long, do you think?
Absolutely. Many images circulating of rewards for his arrest, but still no news. I wonder if any more will break today. Yeah,
of course, be careful about social media, everybody. There's lots of doxing going on, including a British man in Canada who's been doxed. Can you believe it? Let's be careful about that, of course. If you want to get in touch with us, gbnews.com/yoursay. But first, here's your 60-second news update with Sophia.
Alex, thank you. A very good morning. These are your top headlines from the GB Newsroom just after 9:30. A senior government minister has said that Lord Mandelson's appointment as the US ambassador was made because Sir Keir Starmer felt he was a good fit to work with President Trump. But when new evidence emerged, the Prime Minister was left with no choice but to sack him. CCTV video footage of Charlie Kirk's shooting suspects fleeing the scene has been released by the FBI as the manhunt continues. The investigators are offering $100,000 reward for any information that could lead to the identification of the gunman. Figures from the Office for National Statistics show that the economy stagnated in July, despite a 0.4% boost in June. The flat performance was driven by the sharpest fall in manufacturing in a year, down 1.3%. Prince Harry has made a surprise trip to Kyiv with his Invictus Games Foundation after an invitation from the Ukrainian government. He said that he wants to do everything possible to support the recovery of injured military staff. And seeing your doctor quickly matters more than anything else in the NHS. That's the verdict from the public in a new poll. It finds that GP access is the biggest priority, with A&E and staff retention close behind. Those are the headlines for now. More news at the top of the hour.
Tune into GB News Radio wherever you are, online, on DAB digital radio, on TuneIn, on Radio Player, and on your smart speaker. Just say, play GB News.
Hello, good morning. Welcome to Britain's Newsroom. We're live across the United Kingdom on GB News with Alex Armstrong and Miriam Kate. And Alex, we were just discussing before the headlines about the hunt for the killer of Charlie Kirk. There was a big press conference yesterday, and the Utah government, the Utah governor announced that they're going to pursue the death penalty for the attacker, also offering a reward. But interestingly, you were mentioning problems with social media. Well, he actually did say to the public, avoid being drawn in by social media. This Spencer Cox warned that the Chinese and Russian bots are trying to encourage violence by spreading disinformation about the case. Social media is bizarrely not actually helping them to catch the killer. I
don't know about you. I mean, I'm prolifically online these days, and I have seen about 3 or 4 different names, different photos of people circulating, and it just doesn't help, does it? We're trying to find somebody who's committed an atrocious act against freedom of speech, and all this speculation just doesn't help. Let the security services do their job. But on top of that, it is taking them a long time, and that is part of the problem here, isn't it? When the security services just can't get their act together, the vacuum is filled by people speculating. It's really sad. This whole thing is so sad. I remember watching the news break on the other day. Charlie Peters was doing a brilliant job with Ben Leo and Bev. I was just absolutely devastated because I think when a lot of us are doing what we do here, we do it because we put our heads above the parapet to say and talk about things that are actually quite difficult, and the public haven't had these conversations before.
Yeah, absolutely. Right? And it's so confusing, isn't it? Because on the one hand, social media is really important for free speech, and we've been talking in this country particularly about the overzealous police force, the misuse of laws about inciting violence to imprison people who have just made, relatively innocent tweets. But now we're talking about social media actually adding to the problem of drawing attention on people who shouldn't have attention. So we were talking about this, one of the men who was actually arrested at the scene, who was not guilty of the murder, but nevertheless was arrested at the scene. You were telling me before that he looks like a British man who was then targeted because he looked similar.
Well, so this is an older English bloke, and I don't know if some of you saw that there was a sort of arrest made immediately after the shooting of an old man. He was on the floor. If you remember, I don't know if some of you saw that footage. But there's an English bloke who lives in Canada who looks almost like his twin, unfortunately for him, and people were doxing him, and doxing is a form of basically releasing his public information, releasing where he lives, releasing his social media information, and his family were going, please delete all of it, something bad's going to happen to you. And it's very scary.
It really is.
Scary.
And then to think that there might be bad actors from foreign states also involved, trying to stir it up, trying to make it more difficult to catch the killer. It is really hard for the police. They've almost got too much information now.
Yeah.
How do they know which leads to take?
Yeah. And of course, before we move on, we've got that Oxford Union president-elect, should I say, who debated Charlie Kirk, is everywhere at the moment. This is a very British angle on this story, and it sent Americans into furore over it. But we'll talk more about that.
Yes, this is George Aberoni, who celebrated the death of Charlie Kirk on social media, and it is really disturbing, Alex, actually, how many people think that because Charlie Kirk was someone they disagreed with, which of course is perfectly legitimate, that actually his death is something to be celebrated. I find it all quite upsetting, I've got to be honest.
Indeed. Well, we've got some light pictures here of the vigil held for Charlie Kirk. You can see that there. I don't know where that's happening actually at the moment.
In Sydney.
It's in Sydney,
Australia.
I beg your pardon. It's in Sydney in Australia. You can see this is a worldwide phenomenon. There is an outpouring of love for this man who many people never had met, especially young people who formed their opinions around him, saw his fearless debating style. He would sit in public forums and debate. This is an extremely brave thing to do. I mean, you might think us sitting here behind a desk in a cosy studio is a lot, but I can't even fathom doing what he did, and he's obviously captured the world. Whether you agreed with him or disagree with him, this feels like an atrocious attack on freedom of speech.
And he was probably one of the first people to reintroduce conservative ideas to a younger generation. For so long, for decades actually, nobody's really explained or promoted conservative ideas in the West, and in some ways they've been lost amongst the younger generation. He did that and had this extraordinary following, even though actually many people in the older generation never heard of him until this week.
And Christian values as well, which is something we don't hear a lot about in politics in the West, in our modern day at least, and that's something he also brought back into politics, but there we go.
A great loss. Well, let's move on to our other big story of the day now, which is that fresh figures are showing the UK economy flatlined in July, didn't grow at all, which is raising pressure on the Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, ahead of November's budget.
Well, we're now joined by GBNews political correspondent Catherine Forster to tell us more. Catherine, not good news. It's been a very bad week for the government, despite Phase 2 only kicking off, it feels like it was last week, but was it Monday this week? I can't remember when it was.
It was Monday last week. It feels like a lifetime, doesn't it? It has been a horrendous couple of weeks for the government, and these figures will give them no relief at all. So the economy did not grow at all in July, 0% growth, and across the 3 months from July onwards, just by 0.2%. So looking at the trend, April to June grew 0.3%, January to March 0.7%. Growth is clearly going down in the wrong direction. Remember that this is a government who, before the election, told us that there would be very limited tax cuts, VAT on private schools, non-DOMs, but nothing else would be necessary because all the money was going to come from growth. And as we've seen, that growth is not coming. We know Rachel Reeves is... looking forward is the wrong word. I'm sure she's not looking forward. No one is looking forward, but planning her budget on the 26th of November and likely to have to make substantial tax rises because there is a black hole that they can't blame on the Tories this time of between 20 and 50 billion, depending on which figures you believe.
If you really dig into the figures, what seems clear is that actually consumer spending is continuing to grow slightly, but productivity exports are falling. And that will really worry the government because really the only route to growth is for us to produce more, to sell more abroad, to start to plug some of the huge gaps that the deficit is leaving in our financial situation.
Well, yes, absolutely. So services up 0.4%, but production, including manufacturing, as you say, down 1.3%. That is pretty awful. And, of course, don't forget, some of this, of course, they will lay at Donald Trump's door because there is all these huge tariffs which the American president has brought in. Now, OK, we have got a trade deal of sort of tariff mitigation deal, which means that we 10% tariffs rather than what other countries are paying much more. But still, that is not good for our businesses that export. Not good at all.
Yeah, manufacturing is one of the key reasons why growth is down, I think, from what I was reading earlier, Catherine. But moving on slightly, because we want to ask you about Peter Mandelson, of course. Lord Peter Mandelson, who is the US ambassador to the United States for us here in the UK. Now, where this story seems to be developing now is moving on from Mandelson, because he's sacked, that he's done, but it's moving on to who's to blame. How did he stay in post for so long? And it seems now Morgan McSweeney, Sir Keir Starmer's chief of staff, who, of course, replaced Sue Gray, if people remember her, he's being sort of the one where the finger is now being pointed by saying he was the one who held out the longest in terms of the sacking here.
Well, yes, but also ultimately the Prime Minister, because at the end of the day, the buck stops at the top. It was the Prime Minister who made this appointment. Morgan McSweeney was brought in because things weren't going very well by Christmas last year. Sue Gray, of course, was booted out. And Morgan McSweeney did push for Peter Mandelson to get the job, despite the fact that it was absolutely in the public domain that he'd been friends with Jeffrey Epstein, a convicted paedophile, and it was known too that he had continued to be friends well after Epstein was first jailed for child sexual offences back in 2008. So a lot of this information was already out there. Now, the government is now saying that new information came to light, certainly new emails. But when the Prime Minister defended Mandelson at PMQs, a lot of this stuff was already out there. So there's a lot of anger as to why the Prime Minister took so long and to why he went with, McSweeney's recommendation in the first place, given what we already knew about Mandelson's fondness for getting in with wealthy individuals, and it had already seen him having to resign twice. Not only all of that, but Peter Mandelson is now fighting back. He's made it very clear that he didn't want to go. He feels that he has been mistreated. He says that he'd given all the relevant information when he'd been vetted. So, it just actually gets worse and worse for the Prime Minister, who lost Angela Rayner just over a week ago, and looking forward to this state visit, Donald Trump arriving next week, and we have an interim ambassador, nobody permanently in the post. We've got a foreign secretary who was Home Secretary until a week ago. I mean, it just paints a really chaotic picture.
And, of course, it's not just a domestic scandal, because the Epstein files, big news in America as well, potentially Trump implicated in that. So not just a self-contained scandal, unfortunately, for the government. Anyway, we'll be bringing you more on that later on. But in response to the release of those latest emails, Lord Mandelson told the BBC, "I relied on assurances of his innocence that turned out later to be horrendously false. His lawyers claimed that it was a shakedown of him, a criminal conspiracy. I foolishly relied on their word, which I regret to this day."
Well, still ahead. Fury in Leeds as anger grows over a Home Office plan to house illegal migrants in student flats. Well, locals say it's a hotel by another name and complain they'll have no say.
But up next, we'll have the latest on that manhunt after Charlie Kirk's killing. But first of all, if you want some weather for elsewhere apart from the UK, here's your holiday forecast.
Can't wait to get in that sea.
Lovely and warm.
Just like the feeling of having great travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GBNews Travel Destinations Forecast.
It's a mostly settled picture across much of Europe. Occasional sunshine in places, otherwise lots of sunshine. And that's the story across Spain and Portugal. Mostly settled here, plenty of sunny spells, though we could see some showers affecting Barcelona, also parts of Nice. But elsewhere across Italy, the Adriatic coastline, all the way through into Greece, it should be mostly dry, settled, plenty of sunshine. And that theme will continue as we head into next week, along with the warm temperatures. Bye-bye.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GBNews Travel Destinations Forecast.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Sunday with Michael Portillo from 11, only on GB News.
This week, an extraordinary art discovery was made on an estate agent's listing in Mar del Plata in Argentina. Above a velvet sofa hangs an old master portrait lost for more than 80 years, looted by the Nazis. Its reappearance has reignited interest in the long quest to restore stolen heritage. Joining me now is historian Michaela Hume.
It's a fascinating story. So a lady who is a descendant of a former soldier who worked with Hermann Göring has, it is believed for years, has had some art that has been looted, that was looted during World War II. And I think people have approached her about this over the years, and she's categorically denied having any looted art. And she goes then to put one of the houses, I think that was owned by her father, up for sale, and hasn't realised that art that is believed to have been looted is actually on these images that the estate agent has taken.
Although it is extraordinary, it's kind of not entirely a surprise in the sense that the flat did belong to a Nazi official, is that right?
That's correct, yeah. And we know that Hermann Göring himself was a collector of art. I think during the 1940s, it was said that he was getting, on average, about 3 paintings, what we would call masterpiece paintings, a week. So we know that a large percentage of this looted art was going to him. It was even said that he had masterpieces just hung up in his cabin in the country, so it's highly plausible that he has given a piece of art to one of his right-hand men that has then been, passed down to his daughter.
The People's Channel.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m.
Only on GB News.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There, you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. It's 10 to 10. This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
Well, the manhunt continues for the killer of activist Charlie Kirk as US investigators have released new CCTV and appealed for help identifying a person of interest.
The FBI is offering a $100,000 reward for information leading to the gunman's identification, and footage shows the suspect fleeing, running across a rooftop, jumping down and disappearing into a street.
Well, the fatal shot is believed to have been fired from a rooftop around 130 metres from where Kirk was speaking.
Well, we're now joined by spokesperson for the Republicans overseas, Sarah Elliott. Sarah, thank you so much for joining us. I think what we're asking here on the show today, Sarah, is what's taking the authorities so long for such a high-profile case? Of course, we're seeing a lot of misinformation out on social media, lots of speculation about who this person might be. Sarah, what sort of things perhaps go into this that us Brits might not understand?
Well, I mean, for one, just the population is much larger. The space and size and scope of that university is quite large. There's many different ways to escape and maneuver, but I have full confidence in the FBI that they will find this person. He is on the run, but he's not on the run for long, and it will be a great day for justice when he is caught.
Now, Sarah, Charlie Kirk was clearly very close to a number of people in the Republican movement, including the president and the vice president. He was very much loved, well known around the world. How has his death affected Republicans, the Republican Party itself?
Oh, my gosh, it's been earth-shaking. And just the way he brought so many people into politics, particularly young people. He motivated and inspired. He made politics accessible and clear and understandable to people. He also gave permission to debate ideas. He was the free speech warrior. And what I have found so impressive is just how large and international his reach was. Yesterday I was in the hairdresser, and 2 of the hairdressers in their 40s and 50s followed him and were really heartbroken over it. That's here in the UK. Vigils were in Madrid. I had a school mom today say her teenage daughter said everybody knows about this and has been talking about this, and this is in a UK secondary school. He just had this way of connecting with people, engaging the youth, and he wasn't afraid. He would talk to anybody. If he disagreed with you, it didn't matter, but let's talk about it. Let's have a civil, respectful discussion, and that is his legacy. And I think he will create many more Charlie Kirks in the world now after the fact.
Yeah, Sarah Elliott there, spokesperson for Republicans overseas. I'm sorry for your loss for your country, but also in some ways for the entire world. Thank you so much for coming on, Sarah. Appreciate it. Well, we have to move on to some breaking news now. Reform leader Nigel Farage has spoken out on Lord Mandelson's sacking.
He's an enormously talented bloke. Of that, there's no doubt. You know, I dealt with him when he was a European Commissioner 20 years ago. But to have appointed him to that role was a serious misjudgment from the Prime Minister. We don't yet know what the intelligence briefings would have said, but it looks as though Morgan McSweeney, the Prime Minister's right-hand man, and the Prime Minister ignored the warnings, carried on. He was then reluctant to get rid of Mandelson, and he's now left himself in a very vulnerable position with the rest of the Parliamentary Labour Party. It is about the Prime Minister's judgment, but it's also about the role that Morgan McSweeney plays in this government.
Very interesting comments there from Nigel Farage. I mean, in some ways, he's quite fair-minded because he says there were advantages to having Mandelson in this position, experienced, good at building relationships, but it was a huge risk.
Huge risk. And of course, I was reading some stuff here online from The Independent, and sources apparently told The Independent that MI6 failed to clear Lord Mandelson for the ambassadorial role, largely because there were concerns not over Epstein, but over links to China. And so this is obviously quite a difficult situation in order to the Prime Minister to move on.
And Labour MPs increasingly disenchanted with the government. Well, in regards to Sarah Elliott, who we've just been speaking to, she's speaking from the Prosperity Institute, which is owned by the Legartum Group, and the group is also one of the lead investors in the holding company of GB News.
So we've also got, of course, a bit of a conversation to have here about Morgan McSweeney. Morgan McSweeney is the Prime Minister's Chief of Staff. He has now got the finger firmly pointed at him in Downing Street, which is something quite incredible, really, because, of course, it wasn't that long ago that Sue Gray was sacked in our memories, and she was the last Chief of Staff. It seems to me that there's complete chaos in Starmer's leadership team.
But Morgan McSweeney, if he were to go, and I'm not sure this would be enough to topple him, but he would be a huge loss to Labour because he is seen as someone with common sense, someone who understands the so-called red wall, who's keeping Labour from going too far to the left, getting too involved with identity politics. He's quite close to some of the blue Labour figures, figures like Maurice Glassman. So the Prime Minister would be absolutely loath to lose him. I'm sure will do everything he can to keep it. And rightly so. I mean, he's a very, very sensible and good political operator.
And he's seen as the right wing of the party, as you were saying about blue Labour there. So, you know, it wouldn't surprise me if the left of the Labour Party want a little bit of blood in the water, and they are smelling it here. They've just lost Angela Rayner, who many of them hope the Prime Minister would stand by, and they're thinking, right, well, if we can't get one of Prime Minister's top dogs, let's go for one of his civil servants, such as Morgan McSweeney. I wouldn't be surprised if he's the golden goose they want to go after.
I mean, I can understand why, you know, this scandal has rocked the Labour Party and why, in the end, he had to go. But I think the bigger question is, what does this mean for our relationship with the United States? Because the Trump and the Trump team are desperately trying to keep a lid on the Epstein files. Obviously, there's much bigger news in America at the moment, rightly so. But this is not going to go away for Trump, and it's embarrassing for him, actually, that Britain's taken the step of withdrawing someone with links to Epstein, and yet the you know, great and the good of America are still trying to potentially cover up some of those links.
Yeah, it does. It does make me quite believe in our democracy. We can put pressure on the politicians of our country, and they do end up going after a severe amount of post, which doesn't always the case.
Come back, and that makes me wonder: is this really about principles, or is it about getting people out the news? Well, don't go anywhere, because there's going to be fury in Leeds after Home Office plans to house migrants in student accommodation.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good morning. This is the latest AI travel news from GBnews.com. The M8 westbound is restricted at junction 6 due to debris. Motorists should be cautious. An accident has closed a lane on the M1 northbound exit slip at junction 15 in Northamptonshire. Expected to clear between 10:15 and 10:30 this morning. Congestion on the M4 spur southbound in Greater London may add 15 minutes to your journey, but should clear by 11:45. Delays are on the A27 eastbound in West Sussex, with normal traffic expected soon. And on the trains, Avanti West Coast services to and from Crewe are disrupted. East Midlands railway services face delays between Leicester and Loughborough. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
This is your chance to win a motorhome and cash in our biggest giveaway to date. Courtesy of Marquis Leisure, you could be the proud owner of this 2025 Benamar Primero. It comfortably accommodates 4 people and can be driven on your standard driving licence. Plus, you'll also bank an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash to spend on anything you like. Make sure you don't miss out. For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB16 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 31st of October. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
5 hosts, 5 opinions, 5 fearless debates, 5 unfiltered takes on the day's news.
5 reasons not to be anywhere else on Saturday night.
This is the Saturday 5. You got me. You got me good there. Britain's biggest Saturday night TV show.
It's not a bad brand.
Yeah. Uncensored.
Very, very racy tonight.
On the unpredictable.
What does she say? Can you translate it for us?
And always entertaining.
And how can a country go from being led by William Wallace Saturday nights from 6 p.m. only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
You're going to want to stay tuned, trust me.
Good morning, it's 10 o'clock on Friday the 12th of September. We're live across the United Kingdom. This is Britain's Newsroom with Alex Armstrong and Miriam Cates.
Well, Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer faces fresh backlash from his own MPs over the handling of Lord Mandelson's scandal.
Yes, a beleaguered Prime Minister having lost 2 huge figures just in the last week. Real questions now about his judgment. And some disappointing economic news as new figures show the UK economy has failed to grow in July, piling scrutiny on the Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, ahead of November's budget.
And a new video shows Charlie Kirk's killer calmly fleeing the scene as Utah's governor vows to pursue the death penalty.
Well, Vice President J.D. Vance escorted Kirk's coffin onto Air Force 2, flying his body home to Arizona with grieving widow Erica by his side.
And anger in Leeds as the Home Office is accused of a secret plan to move illegal migrants into student flats, with locals given no say.
And Prince Harry has visited Kyiv in Ukraine, pledging support for wounded soldiers.
Well, I hope you're looking forward to the show, everybody. gbnews.com/yours, so if you want to let us know what you think. But do you know what's really angered me is that asylum hotel story in Leeds. More secret plotting by the government, Miriam.
Well, it looks as though there's a plan to move people from hotels into student accommodation. Of course, there's lots of these student flats all over the country.
Yep.
And in some ways, you could say, well, until we sort out the problem of illegal immigration, unless, then we're going to have to put these people somewhere. Potentially student flats could work, but locals are saying this is on a really busy route that lots of people use for going out at night, going to the pub. They're worried about public safety. It's just more proof that we've got to solve the problem at source.
And also young people going to university, it's already hard enough for them as it is. This is just going to shoot prices up around the areas as the supply drains up, right?
Absolutely.
So you think about young people who are going off to uni, well, now, I guess. September
yes, it's the beginning of term, isn't it?
So there we go.
Well, let us know what you think about that and all the other topics we're covering today. But first of all, here's the news with Sophia.
Miriam Miriam, thank you. A very good morning. It's just gone 10 o'clock. These are your latest headlines. Now, we start with some breaking news in just the last few minutes. The Foreign Secretary, Yvette Cooper, has announced 100 new sanctions targeting Russia's military and energy sectors during her first overseas visit to Kyiv. Arriving in the Ukrainian capital today, Ms Cooper was welcomed by foreign ministers. She said that the UK remains resolute in supporting Ukraine, saying that the UK will not stand idly by as Putin continues his barbaric invasion of Ukraine. His complete disregard for sovereignty has been shown this week. She stressed that international economic pressure is essential to cut off the funds Moscow uses to finance its war. Elsewhere in politics, a senior government minister has said that Lord Mandelson's appointment as the US ambassador was made because Sir Keir Starmer felt he was a good fit to work with President Trump. But when new evidence emerged, the Prime Minister was left with no choice but to sack him. Sir Keir Starmer is under pressure for poor judgment after Lord Mandelson admitted to long-running ties with convicted paedophile Jeffrey Epstein during his vetting. The Prime Minister dismissed Lord Mandelson as ambassador to Washington earlier after damning emails emerged showing that he supported Epstein even as he faced jail for sex offences. This was all less than 24 hours after the PM publicly backed Lord Mandelson in the Commons.
The relationship between the US and the UK is one of our foremost relationships, and I have confidence in the ambassador in the role that he is doing.
It's the second ministerial crisis in a week for Labour, following Angela Rayner's resignation over her tax affairs. Reform UK leader Nigel Farage this morning shared his concerns.
An enormously talented bloke, of that was no doubt. You know, I dealt with him when he was a European Commissioner 20 years ago. But to have appointed him to that role was a serious misjudgment from the Prime Minister. We don't yet know what the intelligence briefings would have said, but it looks as though Morgan McSweeney, the Prime Minister's right-hand man, and the Prime Minister ignored the warnings, carried on. He was then reluctant to get rid of Mandelson, and he's now left himself in a very vulnerable position.
CCTV video footage of Charlie Kirk's shooting suspect fleeing the scene has been released by the FBI as the manhunt continues. The investigators are offering a $100,000 reward for any information that could lead to the identification of the gunman. The video shows someone running across the roof of a building before jumping off and walking onto the street. The killer is believed to have fired the shot from the roof of a building near the courtyard, approximately 130 metres away from where Charlie Kirk was speaking. Overnight, the body of Charlie Kirk was transported to Arizona aboard of Air Force Two, with Vice US President J.D. Vance and his wife, Usha, travelling with the now widowed Erica Kirk. And figures from the Office for National Statistics show that the economy stagnated in July despite a 0.4% boost in June. The flat performance was driven by the sharpest fall in manufacturing in a year, down 1.3%. That slump offset gains elsewhere, with retail sales climbing 0.6% in construction and edging up 0.2%. ONS Director Liz McEwen said that the production drop was caused by broad-based weaknesses across the manufacturing industries. And a grooming gang in Tameside went unchecked in the 2000s, and one of the perpetrators is still working in the public sector today. GB News can exclusively reveal as survivor Lucy told her story as concerns mount over child sexual exploitation in the borough. It raises new questions about how the council has dealt with child exploitation, with Ofsted inspectors branding its record inadequate since 2016.
He knew where I lived. As soon as he hit me, he was like, "If you say anything to anyone, I swear to God, watch what happens." I would love them to be locked up, named and shamed. I've had a horrible life growing up, and now, thinking back, they were a part of that. They need to be held accountable, and their families need to know what they did.
A Tameside Council spokesperson has said, "We support victims and survivors from any time, and we will work with them to access specialist services as appropriate. However, as a learning organisation, we recognise that there is more for us to do and are fully engaged in the peer review process. We are always happy to work directly with families and our partners to discuss any feedback and explore where our services can be further improved." Prince Harry has made a surprise trip to Kyiv with his Invictus Games Foundation after an invitation from the Ukrainian government. He said he wants to do everything possible to support the recovery of injured military staff. The Duke is due to meet with veterans and the Ukrainian Prime Minister today. His visit follows several days in the UK where he was reunited with the King. It also comes as his Archewell Foundation pledged $500,000 to projects helping injured children in Ukraine and Gaza. And seeing your doctor quickly matters more than anything else in the NHS. That's the verdict from the public in a new poll. It finds that GP access is the biggest priority, with A&E and staff retention close behind. Sir Keir Starmer's Plan for Change pledged that by July 2029, 92% of people will be seen without 18 weeks for routine hospital treatment. But reducing these waiting times only ranks 5th for the public in terms of their priorities. Those are the latest GB News headlines for now. More from me in just under half an hour, but now it's back to Alex and Miriam.
Hello and welcome back to Britain's Newsroom. We're live across the United Kingdom and on GB News with myself, Alex Armstrong, and Miriam Cates.
Well, let's see what you've been saying on gbnews.com/your say. Lots of comments about the Peter Mandelson scandal. And I'm just trying to find a good one here. Yes, people, East Coast guy saying that it's sad that lots of people have got short memories talking about Mandelson. Of course, it was always known that he was scandal-prone. He'd been sacked twice before when he was cabinet minister, brought back his career, rehabilitated. But it wasn't as if the potential for fallout was unknown, was it? So lots of comments about that.
He's had more lives than a cat, hasn't he, in political terms? It's very hard to have one political comeback, let alone 3, and survive the multiple resignations and sackings. But there we go. I think this probably is his last life in politics, if you ask me, but never say never, clearly. Absolutely. Well, time is a wonderful healer often, isn't it? Indeed. Well, of course, as we've just been saying, the Prime Minister is under pressure to explain why Lord Mandelson was ever appointed ambassador to the United States in the first place. Well, that's as it emerges. The now sacked former ambassador reportedly admitted the extent and full length of his friendship with Epstein during the vetting process. And serious questions are now being raised by backbenchers as the Mandelson scandal came to light just days after Angela Rayner, the former Deputy Prime Minister, was forced to resign from the Cabinet. So, can the Prime Minister survive the backlash, or could this be the final nail in the coffin? Well, we're joined now by GB News political correspondent Catherine Forster and US journalist Chapman Bell. Thank you both so much for joining us. Catherine, we'll start with you. It's looking like, as every week goes by, the Prime Minister is more and more beleaguered by the issues facing his own party. These are issues that are not coming in from outside, they are coming from very well within inside the government.
Yes, and I was talking just about a week ago to somebody who had previously been a very senior figure in Number 10, around about the time that all the Angela Rayner scandal was raging, talking about what the Prime Minister had described as phase 2. And I said, do you think it's going to work? And they said to me, well, it has to, because this is the last chance, basically. So that's from somebody who was in Number 10. And this week, it's got even worse with this sacking of Peter Mandelson. But the questions now, why did the Prime Minister defend him so robustly at Prime Minister's questions when a lot of the information was revealed in those days prior to that? A lot of the information was already out there and had been out there for years. And, you know, Peter Mandelson has not gone quietly. He's now briefing that he'd given all the information, you know, about the fact that he'd continued to be friends with convicted paedophile Epstein long after Epstein had been in jail, to the vetting process. And then, of course, there is the question, why on earth was he appointed to this critical role in the first place, given that he twice had to resign before? Now, fingers being pointed at Morgan McSweeney, the Chief of Staff. But at the end of the day, the responsibility for this rests with the Prime Minister, and now we have a huge, unprecedented state visit by Donald Trump coming next week, and we have just an interim US ambassador and a foreign secretary who up until a week ago was Home Secretary. It's a pretty terrible backdrop for a very, very important visit next week. Now, Chapman Bell, in some ways, this is a very British scandal. Someone gets caught out, they're forced to resign after hanging on for a few days, and potentially the press moves on. But it's not just a British scandal, is it? There are huge US
implications for this? Is that being recognised in the States at the moment?
Well, I think in terms of losing the ambassador or just the Epstein in general.
Also the fact that some of the great and good in America are caught up in the scandal.
Right. Well, and we've talked about this before. The fact is, Jeffrey Epstein was involved with some of the world's biggest leaders, a whole generation, really, of some of the biggest power players in the world. And people have been really hungry to find out what exactly did they get up to with him. Now, there's, you got to avoid guilt by association, but there are a lot of big names, and as more and more information comes out, more people could potentially come down. One of the biggest things seems to be the relationship beyond his conviction and when things came to light about his crimes. And that's what happened with the Duke of York, and that's what's now happened with Lord Mandelson. It's the continued association. Now, I was in touch with former President Bill Clinton's team yesterday, and they haven't changed their story once. They have stuck to the line that he had, they've been clear with what he did during the time he was an associate of Epstein, but that he had no contact with him in more than 20 years, and that he has never been accused of any wrongdoing, and that they were more than open to these documents being released by the court. So I think it's clear to make the point that a lot of people were involved or had a relationship with Epstein, but did they have anything to do with his crimes?
He was prolific socialite. That doesn't mean everybody knew intimately details about his life.
Exactly, but people around the globe, here in America, have wanted to find out more. And it's become a scandal in the sense that not more information has come out. And that's what's been driving this, to get more information out and find out who exactly could have been wrongdoing. Now, there's no point that there's nothing that says Lord Mandelson had any wrongdoing or any involvement in crimes, but I think it's the association following Epstein's crimes coming to light that seems to be the problem for people.
Chapman, I want to ask you about, of course, Charlie Kirk, because he has not only captured America, but captured the entire world at this moment in time. We saw live images of a vigil being held in Sydney, so this is really a global thing we're experiencing here. But specifically on Turning Point, because Turning Point was the organisation Charlie Kirk founded. Now, they've accused David Lammy, who's now Deputy Prime Minister, previously Foreign Secretary, of course. They've accused him of fueling violent rhetoric. Now, that's going back to some of Lammy's previous claims there. I believe, if I'm reading a post from X that Lammy posted, the transformation of the Tories. This is back when the group first started in the UK. This for the Tories from a centre-right, economically conservative party to one that openly promotes hard-right, xenophobic bile in just a few years. Shows you what happens when you appease. Is this a fair characterisation by David Lammy?
Well, I'm not going to get into whether or not it's fair. What I will say is rhetoric on both sides of the political divide has become increasingly provocative in recent years. And, with social media, the war of words the battlefield's grown. And more people are involved, and there's a lot more out there, and there's a lot more misinformation out there as well that's driving a lot of, hatred and misunderstanding as well. Now, the beauty of free speech is that you do have the ability to say what you think, and the hope is that two sides can come to a compromise and bring something that works for both sides and bring in different points of view. But I think what I will say is, it's horrible, as President Trump said, it's a dark day for America. And it is. Anytime someone is killed for any reason, but also for anything to do with politics, any political assassination is horrible. And we've seen a lot more political violence on the rise. And this all happens around the anniversary of 9/11, which was one of the worst things to ever happen to America nearly a quarter century ago. But what it did do was unify a nation. And now you have a nation that is deeply divided, deeply polarized, and violence happening and on both sides of the division. And I think what a lot of people are calling for is to unify, and it needs to come from the top, from leaders, to see some unity and to maybe stop the finger pointing. and bring people together and make it clear that any kind of killing or political violence is completely unacceptable.
Catherine, it hasn't just shone a light on political polarisation in terms of left-right, but also, even here in the UK, the difference in political views of the older generation to the younger generation. It was so noticeable how, when Charlie Kirk was killed, everybody under 30 knew who he was, had seen his videos, whether or not they agreed with him or followed him. Whereas actually lots of people, particularly over 50 perhaps, never heard of him at all because of the way that social media works and how bespoke it is. Do you think there's a growing divide, not just left-right, but also old-young in this country?
Well, yes, and also my 16-year-old son and my 20-year-old knew all about Charlie Kirk, had watched a lot of his stuff. And something that has really struck me is when the news came through, when President Trump said he's dead, I shouted out, "Jonathan, he's dead." And he came in and he went, "Of course he's dead." And I said, "How did you know?" He goes, "Because he was shot in the neck." And I said, "How did you know that?" He goes, "I've already seen it from 3 angles." Now, he's 16. And my 20-year-old last night showed me one video. It is incredibly graphic. It is still on Instagram. It currently has 20 million views. I'm sorry, isn't the Online Safety Act... Isn't somebody supposed to take... That is a murder.
I completely agree with you.
We are very careful
in
what we show.
And yet, a lot of these same people who are standing up for free speech don't want any kind of regulation on the internet, which means that you can never stop videos of violence like that propagating around the world.
I understand that in the immediate aftermath, it's difficult to control what's out there, but the point is, I watched that 10 minutes ago.
3 days later.
Still out there. What are
it's traumatising as well.
What are Meta doing? My 16-year-old has seen it, but is it really appropriate for anybody to see that? It is a murder.
The Chapman, just to come back to you for a second as well, because I've seen a lot of comments on social media, particularly social media, where young people are responding, going, actually, I feel... They are openly saying they feel radicalised by this. They've what Catherine said is correct. They've seen this brutal murder in front of their... Many of them would feel like they were there because it was that graphic. Many of them said they feel radicalised now and polarised more so than ever before. Is this a moment, in fact, maybe unironically, a turning point in America where we see actually two sides become even more divided?
Potentially, but like I said, that's why it's a chance for leaders to try to bring some unity. And I think the message needs to be, instead of pointing fingers, saying there's no room for this kind of violence. But, you know, one interesting point you point out about, you know, seeing this over and over on social media, what I do find interesting, while I think it's not a good thing for particularly young people to see over and over, it made me think, how many times have we seen the Kennedy assassination over and over and over? Granted, that was grainy, black and white film.
This was
and now this is and now that's the point. Nowadays, technology is so much better. It's like being there as opposed to seeing, you know...
And just 20 years ago, before the internet, there were strict rules. Well, there are still strict rules about what you can show on TV. There's no way you could have seen that on mainstream TV. If you want to see a movie with actual murders in, you'd have to be 18 and prove your age. I mean, we forget how much the internet has changed.
I have to admit, on a personal level, when I saw that footage, it almost brought me to tears as a man. And seeing another person's life being taken like that,
and being able to see that moment over and over again.
It really hurt me emotionally, knowing that his family and his children, his wife were there. And just the image is still in my head, and that's how traumatising I think that was.
And we know that children brought up in war zones are traumatised that and much more prone to violence, and yet all our children now are being exposed to graphic violence all day long. Some of them.
Yeah, horrible stuff. Horrible, horrible, horrible stuff. I hope they catch that assassin quickly. I really do, and I hope justice is swift and hard. In a response to the release, of course, of the latest emails between Lord Mandelson and Epstein, he told the BBC this: "I relied on assurances of his innocence that turned out later to be horrendously false. His lawyers claimed that it was a shakedown of him, a criminal conspiracy. I foolishly relied on their word, which I regret to this day."
Well, do get in touch with your views on that. Well, still ahead, fury in Leeds as anger grows over a Home Office plan to house illegal migrants in student flats. Locals say it's a hotel by another name and complain they'll have no say in it.
Right, but before that, time for the Great British Giveaway, and we'd like to congratulate our newest winner, Derek from Northern Ireland. He won his mortgage paid for a year and £5,000 in cash. Here's the moment we gave him the good news.
Derek, I've got some really good news for you. You're the winner of the Great British Giveaway.
No way.
You've won your mortgage or rent paid for 12 months, plus £5,000.
Seriously?
Seriously.
Oh, that's amazing. Absolutely amazing. I mean, no wonder we watch GB News. It's the best. Tells it as it is. That's amazing. I mean, as I say, same as everybody. I mean, you always say, look, I never win in. But just shows you if you're not in, you can't win. Thank you.
Cheers, Derek. Congratulations again.
Fantastic news and congratulations to Derek. Of course, Derek was a winner. You could be our biggest winner to date, driving away with a brand new 4-berth motorhome and £30,000 in tax-free cash. Here are all the details you need.
You're not going to want to miss our greatest Great British Giveaway so far. You could bank an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash to spend however you like. And if that wasn't enough, you'll also get to drive away in this brand new motorhome. With thanks to Marquis Leisure, this brand new 2025 Benamar Primero could be yours. It comes with all the mod cons you'd expect from a vehicle worth over £74,000 and comfortably sleeps 4 people. This prize package is worth over £104,000. And remember, if you can dream it, you can drive it away. For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB16 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrants must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 31st of October. The winner will be contacted live on GB News, week commencing 10th November. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters. Real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Now, Dame Helen Mirren has said that despite being a feminist, she believes the next James Bond has to be a chap.
OK, she said that she believes it just doesn't work, and by having a woman as Bond, the project becomes something else entirely.
So we are asking the question, could Bond ever be a woman?
Well, we're joined by a former, what is termed Bond girl, Jenny Hanley, and yeah, and there is, we're expecting you, but it's really 007 podcast contributor John Kell there as well. Jenny, you've been there, done it, got the T-shirt, been involved in it. What's your take?
I think James Bond has to be a male because he came from the imagination of Ian Fleming. If you want a female 007, don't ride on his coattails and take the fame that has come from his character, James Bond. Write your own.
Yeah, you see, that's what I tend to think. But you're
no, I just think that you just go 007. The problem is, right, the last Bond film, he died. James Bond died. I mean, there was a... Oh, sorry.
Great, I haven't seen that one.
Sorry, yeah. I think everybody pretty much now knows that he definitely... I mean, there was an absolutely... It wasn't even did he or didn't he, can he or can he not survive. It was 100% gone. So it's now time for a clean... The nice thing about a clean sheet, surely, John, is that you can actually go, right, so 007, let's do the 007, and then we can do different stories, because the books that have been written by Ian Fleming have been well and truly milked, haven't they?
GB News, the People's Channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Welcome back. It's 10:30. It was almost 10:30 a.m. at least. This is Britain's Newsroom with me. Yeah, close enough. With me, Alex Armstrong and Miriam Gates.
Well, we're joined now in the studio by political commentators Chloe Dobbs and Andy Williams. Good morning to you both.
Good morning.
Morning.
Plenty in the news today. Shall we start with this story about the Oxford Union president-elect, George Abercrombie, who actually debated Charlie Kirk in person a few months ago, but has been heavily criticised after seeming to celebrate his death on social media.
Well, there is absolutely no excuse for anyone celebrating Charlie Kirk's death. I mean, I completely disagree with his politics, with all sorts of opinions he held, but that is not the point. This was a 31-year-old man who had kids, who was shot dead in cold blood, and anybody condoning that in any way is completely unacceptable. And for me, this is about two things, and Chloe can speak to the Oxford aspect as an alum. Firstly, this is about political violence, and there is a big question as to whether there is a rise in political violence as a result of political polarisation. And if that's the case, that is incredibly concerning. I was concerned by Donald Trump's comments, which I think were more divisive than they needed to be. I think a president of the United States should come out and say this is a time for the nation to come together. The other thing is we have to talk about the elephant in the room, which is gun violence in America. And there were 47,000 gun-related deaths in America in 2023, and in the UK, there were 24. Now, even if you adjust per head of population, that's 391 times as many gun deaths. This is an American problem, and it is a sickness, and it has to stop.
Chloe, you pretty much broke this story yesterday. I'm very proud of you. Is that you obviously got all the inside scoop on what's going on in the Oxford Union, being a former student yourself. This has sent shockwaves through the union, hasn't it? I know the union current administration, which is outgoing. So just for the audience's sake, just explain to us what the union is actually. Perhaps that will be a good place to start and then take it from there for us.
Yeah, so the Oxford Union is often known as the best debating society in the world. And to quote their own words, they consider themselves to be the last bastion of free speech. They have been very committed to platforming controversial people. I was there when Kathleen Stock came and spoke, and there was a huge campaign to try and get that event cancelled, but they went ahead and they stood by their principles. But now what seems to be happening is we've got a president-elect, so he will be president-elect for the autumn and due to be the president in January. He appeared in what we have in screenshots of the General Committee chat on WhatsApp and on his Instagram to be celebrating Charlie Kirk being shot in a very degrading manner, saying Charlie Kirk got shot lol, and even swearing on WhatsApp.
Let's bleep go.
Yes, and why this... I've seen loads of lefty liberal idiots on Instagram and TikTok celebrating Charlie Kirk's death, and that is concerning for me. But the reason why this really concerns me is this is the man who is due to be the president of an association that is committed to free speech and allowing people who have controversial views to be heard, not to wish death upon them. And the reason why it's particularly concerning is because I think it's a safety concern. You have big speakers like Jordan Peterson go and speak at the Oxford Union, right? Is Jordan Peterson going to want to go and speak, knowing that the president, he is trusting with his safety, might wish death upon him?
Well, this is the problem I have with it, and of course the union that what you were describing has distanced themselves from him, and I believe he's apologised for the statements, saying he said them at the heat of the moment. But Andy, my concern with this is quite deep rooted. I'm sorry to jump in here, Mary, but I'm very worried about a radical group of young people in our country. They are becoming more and more radicalised, and the lack of humanity and empathy. The first thing that should come to any human being is, oh my goodness, someone has died. And that doesn't seem to be, seems more like a political point scoring. And this is not just a man who's seen him online. He's debated this man. He's spoken to this man. And we all sit here and have feisty debates, but we all respect each other. We shake hands at the end of it and we have a laugh. What's happened to our society?
No, I mean, I totally agree with that. I would say, I think let's be really careful not to pretend that this is a problem that only exists on the left.
No, I'm not.
It happens
I'm not suggesting it.
I know. I'm just being clear. I think it happens at both extreme ends of politics, and that's why I reject extreme politics and always have.
I'm sure. I mean, there's no doubt truth in that, but I think Trump put his finger on a particular issue. Which is that in recent years, people with what I would call ordinary conservative views that were certainly mainstream until a couple of decades ago, traditional views on marriage, those kind of things, are Nazis. And that is a slogan that's thrown about all the time. I was called a fascist and a Nazi after I made a speech saying that we need to have more children. Now, and the trouble is that in our society, the one slur that is left that can call you truly evil is being a Nazi. That's what we use as our yardstick. And once somebody thinks you're a Nazi, then anything goes. You're no longer a human being. And I think Trump is right to point that out.
I think that's true, but you feel that because that's the side of the fence that you come from. But if you saw my Twitter feed and some of the stuff I get every time I come on this channel, you'd see it from that side as well. I think it's equally bad. But I think the real point is the Oxford Union, if nothing else, is an organisation that is designed to facilitate and foster like free debate and thoughtful debate and robust debate. And if you have somebody at the helm who is celebrating somebody's death, it's not good enough to say, oh, it was the heat of the moment. Like, come on. You know, that's not acceptable.
Well, we're going to have you both back in the newsroom very soon, so stay tuned for more of Chloe and Andy on these big stories. There's lots more to dig in. We only got one there, sorry about that, but we will get more. But before that, we've got your 60-second news update with Sophia.
Alex, thank you. Very good morning. The latest headlines from the GB Newsroom just after 10:30. Breaking in the last half hour, Foreign Secretary Yvette Cooper has announced 100 new sanctions targeting Russia's military and energy sectors during her first overseas visit to Kyiv. Arriving in the Ukrainian capital today, her visit follows on from a week of heightened tension after Russian drones violated Polish airspace during attacks on Ukraine, prompting Poland and NATO forces to respond. Elsewhere in politics, a senior government minister has said that Lord Mandelson's appointment as US ambassador was made because Sir Keir Starmer felt he was a good fit to work with President Trump. But when new evidence emerged, the Prime Minister was left with no choice but to sack him. In the US, CCTV video footage of Charlie Kirk's shooting suspect fleeing the scene has been released by the FBI as the manhunt continues. The investigators are offering a $100,000 reward for any information that could lead to the identification of the gunman. And Prince Harry has made a surprise trip to Kyiv with his Invictus Games Foundation after an invitation from the Ukrainian government. He said that he wants to do everything possible to support the recovery of injured military staff. Those are the headlines for now. More news at the top of the hour.
Take the GB News family with you on any device. As long as you have an internet connection, tune into GB News anywhere on the planet or beyond.
Coming up next, there's fury in Leeds as anger grows over a Home Office plan to house illegal migrants in student flats. We'll have all the details.
Hello there, good morning. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. We'll see winds easing away across northwest Scotland, leaving a day of sunshine and showers for many, but it should remain mostly dry, particularly across eastern areas. Well, we'll see the bulk of the showers will be across western regions, particularly Northern Ireland, western Scotland, and at times pushing into northwest England, parts of Wales and southwest England too. Across many central areas and eastern areas, it should remain mostly dry, but into the afternoon we could just see one or two showers start to scoot their way in, but they should be mostly isolated here. Across western areas, the odd shower could be heavy, perhaps even some hail and thunder, and temperatures are around about average, highs reaching around 18 to 19 degrees Celsius. Through into the evening, we will continue those showers, once again, particularly across Scotland, where they'll sweep their way eastwards. Still could be heavy at times. Also, Northern Ireland and northern parts of England could still see some lingering heavy showers with some hail and possibly thunder, starting to turn quite breezy around coastal areas by the time we reach the afternoon too. Wales and southwest England, still a mixture of clear spells and also some showers still pushing into central areas and parts of the southeast as we finish off the day. But here, once again, they should be mostly mostly isolated. And through the course of the night, we'll still see some showers. At times they'll band together, bringing longer spells of rain across southern parts of Scotland, northern parts of England as we head our way towards dawn. So it could be quite heavy and blustery for a time. So some showers lingering still by the time we reach the morning, but many areas, particularly across central and southeastern parts, should be mostly dry, perhaps just a mix of cloud and also some clearer spells. Across the far southeast, a heavy band of rain eventually clearing its way into the North Sea, and for a time it'll be a little bit drier, a little bit brighter, but once again, particularly as we head into the afternoon, we'll see further showers once again starting to push their way into the west, where they could be heavy with some hail and thunder. Fairly similar temperatures to what we'll see today, highs reaching 18 to 19 degrees Celsius. Bye-bye.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good morning, this is the latest AI travel news from GBNews.com. The M8 westbound is restricted at Junction 6 due to debris. Exercise caution. The M18 northbound exit slip at Junction 3 in Doncaster has one lane closed due to a collision. In Leicester, a collision on the A46 northbound between the junctions with the A563 and the A6 is causing 15-minute delays. Normal traffic flow is expected soon. Congestion on the A27 eastbound between the A286 and the A259 at Chichester East is causing delays. And on the trains, Great Northern and Hull trains report major disruptions between Stevenage and London. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Go on then, Miriam, you take it from it. Yeah, it's your say, go on.
I think it's 22 minutes to 11 and you're watching Britain's Newsroom.
Well, there's fury in Leeds this morning after it emerged the Home Office is planning to move illegal migrants into student accommodation.
Well, locals say it's just a hotel by another name and they're outraged that they'll have no say over this controversial scheme.
Oh, joining us now is former Immigration Minister Kevin Foster. Kevin, thank you so much for joining us. Now, this is yet another example of the government sort of forcing, or at least attempting to force, illegal migrants into an area without consulting local people. Of course, the feeling of animosity and anger is rising in the public following that Bell Hotel overturning by the courts. Where do we go from here, Kevin?
Well, this literally is a hotel by another name, and that's partly the problem when you listen to the government coming out with, we're going to end asylum hotels by the end of this parliament, and then people don't then say, and what are you going to use instead? And things like student accommodation, HIMOs in communities, because you've got about 100,000 people in asylum accommodation across the country, about 30,000, 32,000 of them in hotels. And pretty much any of us taking a look at the UK's housing situation is going to know there's not a whole load of empty houses, despite what someone like Angela Rayner might have said when she was still in office, waiting for 32,000 people to come out of a hotel. So this is the type of stuff we'll see. You know, being honest, this is something that I can remember being raised under Rishi Sunak, not pursued, because if you don't like having asylum hotels near your town, the idea of dropping off quite a lot of single young men in the middle of a student campus or very next close to a student campus, which is where student accommodation is going to be equally unattractive.
Now, there are accusations here, Kevin, of secrecy, that the Home Office is trying to push this through without comments being allowed from locals, and I think it was only revealed because the council got involved. Do you think there are attempts from the Home Office to hide what's going on? I mean, do you understand those attempts, if that's true, or is this just a quirk of the planning process?
Well, Mira, I think you're right to say that the Home Office is not going to want to be shouting about every option it is considering, and will just want things to be able to happen. And I think also they don't want people to be really pushing this. You know, what do you mean by ending asylum hotels? Because they originally ruled out large-scale accommodation centres. They now apparently want to bring that back. And if you've still got the inflow coming in and you haven't really got much of a plan about how to get rid of people, particularly from key countries that arrive in small boats, well, you need to accommodate them somewhere. But you're right to touch on the planning system. Just like we've seen with the Bell Hotel, what will be interesting now to see is where the council start trying to enforce on planning against student accommodation as well, being effectively turned into longer-term accommodation in the same way as we've seen the planning arguments over the Berlin. It's the, shall we say, the local authority and, shall we say, more right-wing version of lawfare that we perhaps see around human rights laws from the left.
Yeah, Kevin, a bit of, let's say, criticism thrown towards Kemi Badenoch and Nigel Farage's parties, respectively, Tories and Reform, because at the end of the day, they're using some kind of their legal power to put pressure on the government to release migrants from hotels and put them into potentially military camps. Now, many people will be asking, these policies are actually forcing migrants into these student accommodations. They're forcing them into HMOs. And my impression of that, when you speak to the public, is that that's worse. So actually, is what the opposition party's doing here worse for British people than actually finding a solution that can work? I mean, of course, many people want them deported, but the Labour Party aren't going to do that. So are the Tories and Reform putting the government in an impossible position that's going to be worse for the public?
Well, I think it's quite reasonable for Nigel and Kemi to highlight the impact of the problems with small boats crisis is having across the country, and that, you know, people don't just magically appear in asylum hotels. What happens is they arrive at Dover, claim asylum, and then end up having to be accommodated by the Home Office while a claim is dealt with, if, quotes, they would otherwise be destitute. Well, funnily enough, very few of them have to say, oh, I've got a house or someone I can go and live with. Hence, we end up with asylum hotels. But I think where the challenge always comes, and actually, by the way, even with the military bases one, which is one that, based on the Greek model, one that I think does need to be done, is you still come to the answer question of where are they going to go? Now, if you look at, for example, the idea of having an ex-RAF base, which has advantages, space scale, and also sometimes a convenient runway you could potentially do deportation flights from, they are in places like Lincolnshire. And of course, we've seen the Reform Mayor of Lincolnshire say she doesn't want them there. I can understand Andrea's point. She's saying what her residents feel. But if your national policy is going to be to have military bases converted to asylum accommodation centres, well, they need to be somewhere. And the question that increasingly people rightly ask is, well, where? And that's where the difficulties come for any government in dealing with this issue.
Now, Kevin, we were both MPs when this was a very, very difficult issue for the previous government. Lots of political wrangling over the Safety of Rwanda bill. Of course, that was never enacted because of the general election. But how do you think Labour backbench MPs are going to be feeling at the moment? Because they must want this problem sorted out. I mean, their inboxes will be full, and yet precious few of them seem to be willing to vote for the kind of radical action that would be needed to actually stop the small boats from coming.
You're right to say it, Miriam. There's a disconnect between the Labour Parliamentary Party and probably where a lot of traditional Labour supporters are on this one. You're seeing some come out. You know, for example, Graham Stringer, a famously independent-minded Labour MP from Greater Manchester, who's very connected to the traditional Labour community, is already saying, well, perhaps we do need to look at our human rights laws. But it is going to be quite a challenge for a Labour Party who just said, you know, smash the gangs, it would all be dealt with, now having to look at much more wide-ranging changes, particularly in the legal system, which many of them will not like. But, you know, they've got to ask themselves, do you want to deal with this problem? Do you think that people are genuinely needing to flee France, a place that a lot of you take a holiday in? And if you don't, then that means taking the type of decisions and pushing for the type of policies that, Miriam, I can remember you and Danny Kruger pushing quite hard for, along with Rob Jenrick, while we were still in government.
She's a troublemaker.
Well, sadly and unsuccessful, and otherwise we wouldn't be here now.
All right, that's former Immigration Minister there, Kevin Foster. Thank you so much for joining us. Well, the Home Office has said this. Decisions about accommodation are made with careful consideration alongside local authorities as part of our strategy to reduce dependence on expensive hotel provision and to create a more sustainable and cost-effective asylum system. Do you know what really annoys me about all of this is that it's only a matter of time now, I think, before the government start going, do you know what, we need mass deportations. It's only a matter of time.
And the longer it goes on, the more difficult and radical the solution has to be. Yeah. And what's so frustrating, Kevin referred to it there, but when the Rwanda bill was being taken through, myself and a number of other MPs brought some amendments that would have stopped people making individual claims under the ECHR, under the Human Rights Act. The government rejected those. The Rwanda bill passed without those important reforms, but then an election was called, and literally this could have been solved by now if that legislation had passed.
Exhausting, isn't it?
Hindsight's a wonderful thing.
Exhausting.
Well, coming up next, Prince Harry has visited Kyiv in Ukraine. We'll have all the details.
But first, if you're in search of that holiday sun, here's the forecast for our top European destinations.
Can't wait to get in that sea.
Lovely and warm.
Just like the feeling of having great travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
It's a mostly settled picture across much of Europe. Occasional sunshine in places, otherwise lots of sunshine. And that's the story across Spain and Portugal. Mostly settled here, plenty of sunny spells, though we could see some showers affecting Barcelona, also parts of Nice. But elsewhere across Italy, the Adriatic coastline, all the way through into Greece, it should be mostly dry, settled, plenty of sunshine. And that theme will continue as we head into next week, along with the warm temperatures. Bye-bye.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
No,
Because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back,
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
and we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Britain was once the envy of the world, but look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m, only on GB News.
Welcome back. It's 10 to 10, and this is Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
Well, Prince Harry has been travelling to Kyiv in Ukraine, pledging support for wounded Ukrainian soldiers as part of his Invictus Games work.
And it comes as reports suggest he's now in King Charles's good books. More so, apparently, than William, with the King said to be frustrated by his heir's lighter workload and repeated holidays.
Well, joining us to discuss this speculation is GB News' royal correspondent, Cameron Walker. Cameron, is this just speculation? Is there any truth in it at all?
The William stuff.
Like Meghan would make up, perhaps.
Oh, God, I love being dragged into speculation. Right, so, you look, what are the facts? The facts are, if you look at the number of public-facing engagements, it looks like the King is doing a lot more than who's got cancer, of course, than his younger son, William, who is, of course, in his 40s. What I would say to that is that Prince William is going things a different way. Exactly. So you can say an engagement will count as cutting a ribbon somewhere and opening a building. What Prince William is trying to do is change it up a little bit. So he does a bit more work behind the scenes, planning, phone calls, meetings with various officials and stakeholders to try and have an actual impact in communities. That's why he's focusing so much on like Homewards and Earthshot, his environmental prize and things like that. Where I think some are starting to ask questions is that, of course, he is future king, and should he be doing more to support his father who has cancer in national events? So, for example, other than one statement on Twitter, there was no public engagement from Prince William for VJ Day, the 80th anniversary of victory in Japan this summer. Now, in the summer, that's when the children are on holidays, and from the Prince and Princess of Wales's perspective, they want to spend lots of time with their young family while they can, and they don't want to do anything during the school holidays if they can help it, and that's their choice, that's what they're doing. But of course, you have seen in the papers this morning, some people are asking questions about that.
Yeah, and of course, the other brother, Prince Harry, is in Ukraine.
Yes.
What's he doing over there? I was like, what's Harry doing? Of course, yeah, he's got a background in the military, but what's he doing over there?
Yeah, well, he actually asked the British government's permission if he was allowed to go to Ukraine, and the government said, yes, you can, if you would like. So that's why he's gone. So the Ukrainian government has invited him across as part of his Invictus Games Foundation, which is his Paralympic-style competition to support wounded veterans. Of course, in London this week, he was at a blast injury place at the University Imperial College London looking at different prosthetics, because there's over 100,000 soldiers and civilians in Ukraine who have been injured by Russian drones and missiles. So Prince Harry is going to look at the work being done to rehabilitate these people. And of course, Prince Harry, like him or loathe him, he's very famous, and he is drawing a spotlight onto those injured veterans or, service personnel in Ukraine.
And of course, he has been in the UK. He's seen his father for the first time in 20 months. Could this be a kind of defrosting in his relationship with his family?
It's certainly a step in the right direction. Not so much William, but definitely for the king. That means I was stood in the rain for hours outside that gate at Clarence House, waiting to see if his car turned up. And it's so funny. I was with a producer from a different network because we were all teaming up to try and see if it was happening. And she said to me, that looks like Harry's car driving down the Mall. And I looked at the number plate. That is Harry's car driving down the Mall. And a mirror photographer sprinted down the Mall because Harry doesn't have outriders and police protection anymore. Yes. So he got stuck in traffic because of all the underground and started snapping pictures of him. And that's how we confirmed that Prince Harry was meeting the king, because then that car drove into Clarence House and then Buckingham Palace confirmed.
The royal correspondent.
Absolutely, stood in the rain for hours. But yes, that meeting lasted. He was in the building for just under an hour. So the meeting itself probably would have been slightly less time than that. And Prince Harry obviously had to then go off to another engagement. We don't know what was said behind closed doors.
Well, thank you for sticking around, because you, of course, presented breakfast. So you've probably been here since 4 a.m. So enjoy your sleep.
Thank you.
Lots more coming up.
Yeah, Britain's
scheme.
Well, yes,
you
go.
Do it, you do it.
It's out of control, everybody. It's out of control like we are. So see you after the break.
Today, clouds overhead. Total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello there, good morning. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. Rain and strong winds eventually easing away across western parts of Scotland, leaving a day of sunny spells and showers across the rest of the country, but a lot of eastern areas will see a mostly dry day with sunny spells. Taking a look at the bigger picture, low pressure sits to the north of the country, bringing us in a westerly flow, and at times in that westerly wind it will drag in some showers. Now, many central and eastern areas should see a mostly dry day, but even here into the afternoon we could catch 1 or 2 showers. But the bulk of the showers will be across western areas where they could be heavy at times. We may even see some hail, hear the odd rumble of thunder. Temperatures around about average for this time of year, highs around 19 to 20 degrees Celsius. Then to finish off the day, there's still a risk of showers, once again particularly across Scotland. Now, there are going to be lighter winds, particularly around western coasts, but even here still it's going to be quite breezy, particularly if you do catch any heavy showers towards the end of the day. Fairly similar across Northern Ireland, northern parts of England, a mix of clearer spells and also some showers. Wales, southwest England too, we could pick up some showers, but central areas, parts of the south and southeast, most showers should be fairly isolated. Now, across the southern half of the UK, once again, we'll see a mix of clear skies and showers. And we've just got this longer band of showery outbreaks pushing into the far north. This could be quite heavy and blustery at times, once again, possibly with some hail and thunder. So once again, by the time we reach Saturday morning, we could see quite a wet start across parts of the north, but elsewhere we'll see a mix of dry spells and also some showery outbreaks. And that remains the theme as we begin the weekend too. This heavy band of rain eventually clearing off into the North Sea. Fair few showers still pushing into western areas, these merging together at times to bring some longer, persistent outbreaks of rain. Once again, central areas and parts of the southeast will see the best of the brightness, but still a chance of a shower here. Highs once again reaching around 18 to 19 degrees.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Box Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
You could bank an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash to spend however you like. And if that wasn't enough, you'll also get to drive away in this brand new motorhome. This brand new 2025 Benamar Primero could be yours. It comes with all the mod cons you'd expect from a vehicle worth over £74,000 and comfortably sleeps 4 people. This prize package is worth over £104,000. For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB16 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 31st of October. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience, because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions. But every Friday night at 9 p.m, you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
Because
the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though. I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m, only on GB News.
Well, it's 11 a.m. on Friday, the 12th of September, live across the United Kingdom. This is Britain's Newsroom with me, Alex Armstrong, and Miriam Cates.
Now, a manhunt is still underway as video footage shows Charlie Kirk's killer calmly fleeing the scene as Utah's governor vows to pursue the death penalty.
Vice President J.D. Vance escorted Kirk's coffin onto Air Force Two, flying him home to Arizona with his grieving widow Erica by his side.
Newly appointed Deputy Prime Minister David Lammy faces criticism as Turning Point, the youth organisation founded by Charlie Kirk, accuses him of fuelling hate.
And the Oxford Union condemns the president-elect after he mocked Charlie Kirk's death just weeks after debating him in Oxford.
British Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer faces backlash from his own MPs over his handling of the Lord Mandelson scandal.
Reports say Mandelson admitted his friendship with Jeffrey Epstein during vetting for the US ambassador role. So why was he ever appointed?
And there's growing anger in Leeds as the Home Office is accused of a secret plan to move illegal migrants into student flats, with locals given no say.
Brilliant stuff. The glory days of motoring are back. Well, at least for anyone who attends the Goodwood Revival this year. We'll be delving into the world of classic cars later on.
Well, everybody here is getting into the spirit of the 1940s, the 50s and the 60s. This year at Goodwood Revival, they're celebrating the 1965 World Championship of Jim Clark. Tomorrow, it's 60 years to the day. We've spoken to the heritage manager at Classic Team Lotus all about him. You'll hear that shortly.
What a hat that is, Jack. Oh, he looks about to go and do an investigation of some kind back in the 1960s. Brilliant stuff.
He's definitely dressed for the occasion. We've got a really interesting story coming up, Alex, about the Motability Scheme, which is the government's scheme to give cars, particularly to disabled people, to help them to get around. But it seems that there's quite widespread abuse of the system, a huge amount of money, billions of pounds, in fact, being spent, and often giving people cars for mental health reasons rather than physical disabilities.
Yeah, up to, was it 50%?
Of privately bought new cars are through this scheme, because of course most people buy second-hand, and a good chunk of new cars are bought by companies, fleet cars, so it's actually quite a small market for individuals. But yes, we've got all that coming up with a representative from the group that's discovered this information.
We're going to be like Greece, aren't we, soon before you know it. There we go. Anyway, gbnews.com/yours if you want to give us your views. But first, here's your news with Sophia.
Alex, thank you. Very good morning. It's just gone 11 o'clock. These are your latest headlines. A senior government minister has said that Lord Mandelson's appointment as the US ambassador was made because Sir Keir Starmer felt that he was a good fit to work with President Trump. But when new evidence emerged, the Prime Minister was left with no choice but to sack him. Sir Keir Starmer is now under pressure for his poor judgment after Lord Mandelson admitted to long-running ties with convicted paedophile Jeffrey Epstein during his vetting. Lord Mandelson was dismissed after damning emails emerged showing that he supported Epstein even as he faced jail for sex offences. This, of course, was all less than 24 hours after the Prime Minister publicly backed Lord Mandelson in the Commons.
The relationship between the US and the UK is one of our foremost relationships, and I have confidence in the ambassador in the role that he is doing.
This is the second ministerial crisis in a week for Labour, following from Angela Rayner's resignation over her tax affairs. Reform UK leader Nigel Farage this morning shared his concerns.
An enormously talented bloke, of that was no doubt. You know, I dealt with him when he was a European Commissioner 20 years ago. But to have appointed him to that role was a serious misjudgment from the Prime Minister. We don't yet know what the intelligence briefings would have said, but it looks as though Morgan McSweeney, the Prime Minister's right-hand man, and the Prime Minister ignored the warnings, carried on. He was then reluctant to get rid of Mandelson, and he's now left himself in a very vulnerable position.
CCTV video footage of Charlie Kirk's shooting suspect fleeing the scene has been released by the FBI as their manhunt continues. The investigators are offering a $100,000 reward for any information that could lead to the identification of the gunman. The video shows someone running across a roof of a building before jumping off and walking into the street. The killer is believed to have fired the shot from the roof of a building near the courtyard, approximately 130 metres away from where Charlie Kirk was speaking. Overnight, the body of Charlie Kirk was transported to Arizona on board of Air Force Two, with Vice US President J.D. Vance and his wife travelling with the now widowed Erica Kirk. Foreign Secretary Yvette Cooper has this morning announced 100 new sanctions targeting Russia's military and energy sectors during her first overseas visit to Kyiv. Arriving in the Ukrainian capital today, Ms Cooper was welcomed by the Foreign Minister. The visit follows a week of heightened tensions after after Russian drones violated Polish airspace during attacks on Ukraine, prompting Poland and NATO forces to respond. She reinforces the UK's support for Ukraine, saying, "We will not stand idly by as Putin continues his barbaric invasion of Ukraine. His complete disregard for sovereignty has been shown this week." Back in the UK, a grooming gang in Tameside went unchecked in the 2000s, and one of the perpetrators is now working in the public sector. GB News can exclusively reveal, as survivor Lucy told her story as concerns mount over child sexual exploitation in the borough. It raises new questions about how the council has dealt with child exploitation, with Ofsted inspectors branding its record inadequate since 2016.
He knew where I lived. As soon as he hit me, he was like, "If you say anything to anyone, I swear to God, watch what happens." I would love them to be locked up, named and shamed. I've had a horrible life growing up, and now, thinking back, they were a part of that. They need to be held accountable, and their families need to know what they did.
A Tameside Council spokesperson has said, "We support victims and survivors from any time, and we will work with them to access specialist services as appropriate. However, as a learning organisation, we recognise that there is more for us to do, and we are fully engaged in the peer review process. We are always happy to work directly with families and our partners to discuss any feedback and explore where our services can be further improved." And Prince Harry has made a surprise trip to Kyiv with his Invictus Games Foundation after an invitation from the Ukrainian government. He said that he wants to do everything possible to support the recovery of injured military staff. The Duke is due to meet veterans and the Ukrainian Prime Minister today. His visit follows several days in the UK, where he was reunited with the King. It also comes as his Archewell Foundation pledged $500,000 to projects helping injured children in Ukraine and Gaza. Those are the latest GB News headlines for now. More from me in half an hour, but let's quickly check in with the markets.
Cheers Britannia Wine Club proudly sponsors the GB News Financial Report.
Here's a quick snapshot of today's markets. The pound will buy you $1.353 and €1.155. The price of gold is £2,690 and 65 pence per ounce, and the FTSE 100's at 9,322 points.
Cheers Britannia Wine Club proudly sponsors the GB News Financial Report.
Hello, welcome back. You're watching Britain's Newsroom, live across the United Kingdom on GB News with Alex Armstrong and Miriam Cates.
Well, lots of you have been getting in touch about this Mandelson story, and quite frankly, a lot of you are saying, is the Prime Minister finished? Is he done? Is this going to be the straw that breaks the camel's back? Now, listen, we've seen Prime Ministers hang on through far worse than this before. I mean, look, Liz Truss was obviously, gone in a matter of weeks because the Tories got a little bit regicidal, I think, didn't you? You all got a bit trigger happy there.
What you're talking about.
I think you did. And
nothing to do with me.
No, of course not. I'm sure you didn't vote. Did you put any letters in their confidence in?
No, I never put a letter in.
Oh, yeah? Is there any way we could find that out? Any?
No, there's... Alex. No, there is no way of verifying that because, of course, Sir Graham Brady, who was the long-standing chair of the 1922 committee, was famously secretive and reliable and didn't give anything away, which is why everybody trusted him. But no,
you've had loads of experience in seeing leadership contests. Do you think Labour's got the... sorry, I don't mean it's particularly aimed at you, but I mean the party in general.
Yep.
But do you think Labour will have an appetite to get rid of him soon?
It's a really interesting question, and I think people obviously were very critical of Conservative Parliamentary Party for getting rid of so many leaders. But on the other hand, is it a good thing that backbenchers are able to respond to what constituents and members are saying and say to a particular leader, you've had your time, whereas it's much more difficult in the Labour Party. I can't remember the exact mechanism, but it's very, very difficult for them to get rid of a leader. So, and that's why Corbyn lasted so long at such detriment to the Labour Party. So I don't think there is a perfect solution here, really, Alex.
And who would take over from him now Rayner's gone? That's the other big question. I don't know.
Everybody, of course, talking about Andy Burnham wanted to come back. He'd have to become an MP again first. But I think he's quite potentially a credible leader. But we'll see. I think, potentially at the next election, both old parties are going to do poorly. Yeah. And new politics is coming. Well, I just want to read out one comment, actually. Yeah. This is going back to the Charlie Kirk story, the tragic assassination of Charlie Kirk in America. Rory Donaldson says, Alex, Miriam, viewers and listeners, listening and watching GB News, we're speaking about Charlie Kirk as an activist. But other media, BBC and Sky, are saying he is a right-wing activist, like a badge of shame. Do you know, that's a really good point. That actually, does it matter what his politics were? No. Where he saw himself on the left and right. The point is here that someone has been killed for their speech, for their beliefs, for being willing to speak about their beliefs, and that should be the most important thing.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And, of course, whenever it's someone on the right, they always go, whataboutism, don't they? Start talking about, oh, well, he advocated for this, he advocated for that. Let's get to the humanity of all of this. And I think this has shone many people on the right of American politics in a very good light and some on the left in not such a good light.
And so many people having to qualify their distress at Charlie Kirk's death by first of all saying, I, of course, didn't agree with anything he said. Even Grant Shapps, the former Defence Secretary and a Conservative, distancing himself from Kirk's conservative views. I just find that, you know, nobody's saying that just because you're sad about someone's death, nobody would think that that means you agree with everything they say, surely. Absolutely right. Oh, we could talk about this story all day, and in fact, we're going to talk about it a bit more now because the manhunt for the killer of Charlie Kirk is still at large as US investigators release new CCTV and appeal for help identifying a person of interest. The FBI is offering a $100,000 reward for any information leading to the gunman's identification. Well, footage shows the suspect fleeing, running across a rooftop, jumping down and disappearing into the streets. Well, the shot is believed to have been fired from a rooftop around 130 metres from where Kirk was speaking. Well, we're now joined by former Scotland Yard detective Mike Neville. Mike, thank you so much for joining us. I think what would be so interesting for us, Mike, is if you can shed any light about how investigations like this take place, even from a UK perspective. I think that would be very helpful for our audience to understand.
Well, the video footage is key here. My expertise at Scotland Yard was to catch criminals with images. And what you see on the video here is, of course, firstly, there's an obsession at the moment with facial recognition systems, but these images are just nowhere in any way good enough for that. You've got to have really, like looking at my face now, to use facial recognition systems. What stands out to me, though, is first they've got a palm print of this man, and that hasn't been identified. So that would indicate he's never had his fingerprints taken, albeit some officers forget to take the palm prints. But the big thing for me is the logo on his T-shirt. In 2016, I had the world's first conviction using pattern recognition software. It's used in the advertising industry to match a burglar to two different burglaries by the logo on his T-shirt. And then I found his mugshot. And if you look at the distinctive logo on his T-shirt, you can see these for sale on eBay, and I've seen it on a Facebook site. But the law enforcement agencies are still not using that system. You know, they may well have taken a photograph of this man in that T-shirt and they still can't search for that. That's nearly 10 years after that conviction I had. Now, how important is the public in solving these cases? The police, of course, now in the States have asked for public help finding the identification of this man. But can that create problems as well? Do people tend to give too much information that makes it more difficult for the police to wade through? It is a very difficult decision to release images because you can get the key piece of information, identify that man, but you can also be swamped with information because people really want to help. When I ran the unit at Scotland Yard, we had a really organised system. So if we had an image like that, the first thing we would do is to show it to human super recognisers who worked in that area. So you can say, do you know them? Then we look at other super recognisers. Then we'd look at circulating to all police officers. And if they didn't make an identification, then we would go to the public. But of course, you can't not do this. If they haven't got the clues internally within the police, they've got to release them. But as I say, somebody may well remember selling a T-shirt like that bag that you can see, to an individual. And this is where the public can be really helpful.
Yeah, and Mike, you know, what will happen next? Because we've had days and days and days of this now, and many people will be asking, with such a high-profile case, how has he not been caught? And I know, you know, we've had this here in the UK before, where you expect, with all the CCTV, all the cameras on front doors, on phones, that somebody's going to find this person. Is there even a slim chance that he gets away with it? I'm assuming it's a man, by the way, from the physique and everything. It could very well be a woman for all we know, but it looks like a man to me. Could he very well get away with this?
I don't think so, because the full agency of the state will be onto this man, and it really depends. Is he a lone wolf? Is he on his own? Is he part of an organised group? And there's all sorts of conspiracy theories on the internet about different countries being involved in this and whatever else. But the fact they've got those initial images, what you got to imagine with all the Ring doorbells and CCTV, they're not linked together. So somebody's got to submit them to the police, and then the police have got to troll through them. And if you remember recently the case of Constance Martin, where the baby was found dead in Sussex, the police tracked those people all the way across the country. But it took weeks and weeks to obtain the footage and do that. So this may take several weeks to obtain different bits of footage, put it together and see where he went. So hopefully they'll see him getting into a vehicle or something with a registration mark or some identifiable thing where you can catch the criminal.
And one of the warnings given by Spencer Cox, the governor of Utah, to the public was to be wary of social media. He said that Chinese and Russian bots were conspiring to put misinformation onto different internet platforms. And how big an issue, is it a growing issue, of this misinformation on social media? And what kind of effect does that have on the police and the public?
Well, again, it does create that absolute thing of misinformation. People think they've seen something, people get angry about it, people start ringing the police and giving information, which then leads the police down rabbit holes. You can see why foreign agencies may well do this, particularly if they were involved. We don't know the motive of this man yet. We suspect it's because of Charlie Kirk's views, but who has set him about this? Is it his own decision, or has he been tasked by somebody else? It's certainly, as an ex-soldier, it seems to me to be a very good shot that he took there. So are you looking for a professional man? But the FBI and the other law enforcement agencies in the States will be doing all sorts of intelligence checks. But we can only hope that, like I say, they track that CCTV and they find a place where they can either see where he's touched it, so they can get their fingerprints from there, or DNA, or they can get a registration number or an address where he's gone into.
Mike Neville, former Scotland Yard detective, thank you so much for joining us there. Well, police, of course, failed to act on warnings of grooming gang abuse in Tameside, a victim has told GB News.
Yes, she's spoken exclusively to our national reporter, Charlie Peters, who can also reveal that one of her alleged abusers is now working in the public sector in the region. Lucy, not her real name, has been voiced by an actor.
You'd see cars full of men driving up and down, playing loud music, getting our attention.
20 years after she was abused by networks of men in Greater Manchester, Lucy is speaking out for the first time. It was in Hyde, a town in Tameside, where Lucy suffered at the hands of predators and where she still lives.
There was one man who always used to drive at night past us on his own. He first approached me and asked, did I want a lift home? He'd seen me at the bus stop and it were raining.
He groomed her for over a year, coercing the young girl into sexual abuse. Lucy can remember the first time he took her to his house.
I felt really uncomfortable being with him. I'm not racist, but his house smelt like curry. And all I could think of was, my mum's going to smell this and my mum's going to know.
Other men in Greater Manchester were involved in your exploitation as a teenager. How did this move on from this one man to wider groups?
The next man was a lot older than the other one, and he got talking to me about him. He just looked at me, shook his head. Then he saw me again in Hyde, came over to me and said, don't ever approach me when I'm with my wife. and I want to give you some money because if we've had sex and if you are pregnant, then it's got to go.
How did this then expand into a much wider network with you being trafficked out of Hyde?
I met all the others because different people would turn up visiting the takeaway. We're sat in there and it's, oh, who's this? Do you want to come for a drive with us? And one thing led to another. At 2 o'clock in the morning, beeping at the back of like my mum's house, I'd run out in my pyjamas, no shoes on, get in the car. Next minute would be in Oldham.
Lucy spent her Christmas that year in hospital. She had pelvic inflammatory disease caused by a gonorrhea infection given to her by the men. Their abuse also became more violent.
I got in the car. I said to him, please, can you take me home, please? Next minute, he backhanded me right in the face. When he saw my eye swelling, he said, you can go home now. Because they had links in Oldham, I didn't want the police getting involved because I know they were a serious community.
What do you mean by that? As in, you think they might come back after you?
Yeah, and they knew where I lived. As soon as he hit me, he was like, if you say anything to anyone, I swear to God, watch what happens.
GB News can reveal that the first man who Lucy says groomed and abused her now works within the region in the public sector. We are choosing not to name them, nor their employer.
What do you want to happen to those men who attacked you when you were a teenage girl?
I would love them to be locked up, named and shamed. I've had a horrible life growing up, and now, thinking back, they were a part of that. They need to be held accountable and their families need to know what they did because their families only look at people like me as trash.
Charlie Peters, GB News in Hyde, Tameside.
OK, well, joining us now is GB News national reporter Charlie Peters. Charlie, thank you so much for coming in to talk to us about this. We've just seen that damning footage there, that account. Tell us more about it.
Well, Tameside is now on the map on the grooming gang scandal, and many activists in the area and survivors and their families have been wanting a story like Lucy's to come forward for some time, because when we think about failures on CSE in Greater Manchester, everyone always thinks about Oldham and Rochdale, but these boroughs do not exist in a force field preventing people from going around them. And Lucy's testimony, very bravely coming forward now for the first time after 20 years, exposes that this issue is happening right across the Greater Manchester Combined Authority. And what she wants now, and what other people I've spoken to in the borough want as well, they want other victims to come forward. And I think her very brave testimony may help inspire others who are waiting for the confidence to see that it can be done, and also to see from the authorities that they're willing to learn and accept the failures of the past, and that when these women, and they are mostly women, come forward and share their testimony, they'll be believed and listened to. And the problem we have, of course, Alex and Miriam, is that this national inquiry into the grooming gang scandal was announced 3 months ago. It still hasn't started. We don't know the terms of reference. We don't know the chair. We understand a victims panel is being built in the background. I've spoken to some people who say they've been asked to join that from around the country, which is interesting, but they say that progress is being too slow. In the time since the government announced that inquiry, GB News has found more evidence of grooming gangs. The government hasn't found anything at all. It's still waiting for more information and to get that inquiry launched.
And Charlie, just briefly, if you don't mind, Shabana Mahmood has just taken over the job. This is going to cause, I suspect, some kind of delay here because she's going to have to get briefed to get on top of it. What sort of repercussions are we expecting on timelines? Well,
I think people are already concerned about the amount of delays in the old Home Office leadership under Yvette Cooper. Shabana Mahmood, in May, before any inquiry was announced, and while Dame Baroness Louise Casey hadn't come back with her report, Shabana Mahmood said there was a reckoning due on the grooming gang scandal. Now, I think she has used stronger language than any other Labour minister on this issue so far, but the test is not language. Victims have had a lot of words. Now it's time for some action.
Well, Charlie Peters, thank you very much. We do need to read some rights of reply from Tameside Council. A spokesperson has said, we support victims and survivors from any time and will work with them to access specialist services as appropriate. However, as a learning organisation, we recognise there is more for us to do and we are fully engaged in the peer review process. We are always happy to work directly with families and our partners to discuss any feedback and explore where our services can be further improved.
And Assistant Chief Constable Steph Parker, GMP's lead for protecting vulnerable people, said this: "We know there are survivors like Lucy whose lack of trust and confidence in us understandably remains after we previously fell far short of the help they had every right to expect from us. To Lucy and any other survivors seeing this, I want you to know that when you are ready, we will listen and act if you want us to. We have specialist officers and support agencies working day in, day out, who are here to help victims and get them long-awaited justice."
Really, really difficult story.
Yeah, it's terrifying, isn't it? Not just for the people who, of course, have already gone through this, but for parents up and down the country.
Yeah, and also at the time, people who should have known what was going on and should have raised it, just ignoring the whole thing. Well, coming up still ahead on the programme is Britain's Motability scheme out of control. Fresh claims are that taxpayers are footing the bill for BMWs and Mercedes.
Cool.
At GB News, we are proud to stand for you, for the Britain you love, for the communities you live in. That's what makes us the fearless champions of Britain, its voices and its values. Because we, at GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently. It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it? It's explosive. I mean, this is very good. It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial. And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born. It's everything you need to kickstart your evening. Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it. That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
isn't it? Because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. It's 29 minutes past 11. You're watching Britain's Newsroom live across the United Kingdom with Alex Armstrong and Miriam Cates.
Well, we're joined by political commentators Chloe Dobbs and Andy Williams in the studio with us. Thank you. Good morning. Good morning, both.
Good morning. Good morning.
What should we talk about first? I mean, we've got the woke-called Ireland here. They're going to be pulling out of Eurovision if Israel participate, Andy.
Yeah, so I love Eurovision. I would call myself an aficionado, so it's great to talk about it on GB News. So a couple of years ago, and for years actually, Eurovision's slogan has been united by music. And then last year they ran into this huge problem, which was that there was massive controversy around Israel's participation. There were protests, there were artists coming out and saying shouldn't do this, and then there was Israel's entry, which was very much a pro-Israeli, anti-Hamas anthem, if you like. Now, the challenge with Eurovision is that you're not allowed to submit political entries. So they've tried to depoliticise it for years, but of course, that's impossible when it comes to something as significant as what's going on in Gaza. So now Ireland, which obviously, whose government has taken a really quite pro-Palestine stance, Ireland is saying, we won't participate in Eurovision if Israel are present. So it's kind of calling on other countries to ask themselves the same questions. It could have quite significant implications.
So it's actually the national broadcaster that won't participate. It doesn't mean that Ireland can't submit a song and a band. And
yes, it does.
Oh, it does?
Yeah, because the national broadcaster makes the decision, so it's...
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Shows how much I know about Europe.
Sorry, that is a geeky point, I'll accept.
No, thank you for being here. Honestly, I wouldn't have known that either.
Look, I don't know a huge amount about the Irish national broadcaster, but I wouldn't be surprised if it is the case that they've got a bit of a woke bubble there, like we have at the BBC here, that's completely out of touch with the reality of what people think. Look, the reality is, Andy, I know you're squirming in your seat.
Squirming? Just like the BBC.
Israel, they won the public vote at Eurovision. The silent majority is very happy for Israel to be in that competition. What you've got is a few woke lefties who are... You can't let these protesters win. You can't say, we've just got to kick them out because the protests are too much.
I've no issue with Ireland participating.
Well, when we talk about sort of...
Israel.
Or Ireland. Woke whinging and crying here. A famous-ish, I don't know how famous this person is, Jade Thirlwall, from Little Mix, has been... Oh, let's just show you the clip if we've got it ready there for you. Let's just show this to you, shall we?
Today I found out that there was like a St George flag on the edge of the north, and I just want to say that if I had a ladder I'd pull it down because I'm very proud to come from the northeast. I am a product of immigration.
Oh, for goodness sake. I mean, just... this is the... Well, who was it last week? Someone else said they were... it was abysmal for them to have seen the flags flying, raise the colours, Operation Chloe. It's just like, just stop getting involved. So just to repeat some of the words, Jade Thirlwall, a Little Mix member who's launching her own album, says, Northeast is a product of immigrations, their words, not mine, and one of the best things about Northeast is our diversity, Chloe.
Well, I mean, first of all, the flag of this country is not all about immigration. It's about all of our country's history and culture. So why she's linked it specifically to that and said, oh, we should take it down, I don't know. But regardless, even if we are going to make it about immigration, what she's done is what I see a lot of people do, is they just go on their own experience and say, oh, all the neighbours I have that are immigrants are really nice to me, therefore there are no issues with immigration. But they haven't actually bothered to look at the broader picture, some other experiences that people have gone through and the stats we have on things like crime, issues with integration in other areas, and so she's just completely got her head in the sand.
Andy, why do you think it is that people in the public eye, celebrities, feel like they have to... People who are not involved in politics, so people who are into entertainment, feel like they have to make comments about politics or take a stand on it.
But she's just as entitled to her view as anybody protesting outside a migrant hotel in Epping. She's a citizen of this country just like anyone else. I won't have a bad word said against Jade or Little Mix, who, by the way, Alex, you asked how famous she is. They're the third best-selling girl band of all time globally.
Well, there you go.
So there you go.
I totally agree with you. I just think it just seems so separate from what you're trying to do, launching an album, and then you're talking about pulling down a flag that's on the Angel of the North. Does it really matter?
Well, but she'd say she's using her platform, and fair enough.
Fair enough.
I mean,
fair enough.
Of course, everyone has a right to her opinion and got free speech, but I do find it frustrating when you have celebrities who don't really follow politics that much and don't know...
But how do you know she doesn't follow politics?
I mean, when you have people like Taylor Swift telling everyone to vote for Joe Biden and then Kamala Harris and... Selena Gomez and Bella Hadid making comments about Palestine.
No, but they've got a platform and a right to say that as much as anybody else.
But I get the impression from what they say and the way they say it that they're not very well informed. As I said about Jade, what she's done is she's just taken her personal experience and said, oh, all the neighbours I have that are immigrants are really nice. Therefore, there's nothing wrong with immigration.
That's her view.
Well, I think it's more...
That's not a very well-founded and documented argument, is it?
Yeah, and for me, it's this feeling, it's this perpetuated feeling amongst the sort of populist elite that the flag is somehow racist and that St George's Cross is racist, that we must destroy it, we must break it down, and that's going to end all the racism in the world. I think it's just completely nonsense. It's rubbish, isn't it?
I think Andy would quite like to be in the pop elite.
I think Andy might be in the pop elite.
I don't know about pop or elite, actually, in my case.
Just the North Islington elite. There we go. We'll leave it at that. Up next.
I live in South East London.
No, we're not doing right reply.
Not accurate, Alex, honestly.
Don't even live in the North.
Oh, well, thank you both so much for your commentary this morning. Look forward to seeing you again soon. Coming up next.
Oh, well, it's the Motability Scheme. Is it out of control? Calls to scrap tax breaks on BMWs and Mercedes for benefit claimants, with taxpayers, you, fitting the bill. This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
Hello there, good morning. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. Rain and strong winds eventually easing away across western parts of Scotland, leaving a day of sunny spells and showers across the rest of the country, but a lot of eastern areas will see a mostly dry day with sunny spells. Taking a look at the bigger picture, low pressure sits to the north of the country, bringing us in a westerly flow, and at times in that westerly wind it will drag in some showers. Now, many central and eastern areas should see a mostly dry day, but even here into the afternoon we could catch 1 or 2 showers, but the bulk of the showers will be across western areas where they could be heavy at times. We may even see some hail, hear the odd rumble of thunder. Temperatures around about average for this time of year, highs around 19 to 20 degrees Celsius. Then to finish off the day, there's still a risk of showers, once again particularly across Scotland. Now, there are going to be lighter winds, particularly around western coasts, but even here still it's going to be quite breezy, particularly if you do catch any heavy showers towards the end of the day. Fairly similar across Northern Ireland, northern parts of England, a mix of clearer spells and also some showers. Wales, southwest England too, we could pick up some showers, but central areas, parts of the south and southeast, most showers should be fairly isolated. Now, across the southern half of the UK, once again, we'll see a mix of clear skies and showers. And we've just got this longer band of showery outbreaks pushing into the far north. This could be quite heavy and blustery at times, once again, possibly with some hail and thunder. So once again, by the time we reach Saturday morning, we could see quite a wet start across parts of the north, but elsewhere we'll see a mix of dry spells and also some showery outbreaks. And that remains the theme as we begin the weekend too. This heavy band of rain eventually clearing off into the North Sea. Fair few showers still pushing into western areas, these merging together at times to bring some longer, persistent outbreaks of rain. Once again, central areas and parts of the southeast will see the best of the brightness, but still a chance of a shower here. Highs once again reaching around 18 to 19 degrees.
Westminster, the ultimate clique. And you're fighting like rats in a sack. But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask. OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician. Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off-limits.
You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
And
say,
now you've lost it.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless.
But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show.
Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There, you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Britain's Newsroom with me, Alex Armstrong, and Miriam Cates.
Well, scrapping tax breaks on new cars provided through the Motability Scheme could save the taxpayer more than £1 billion a year, new researchers suggest.
Well, a former civil servant says too many luxury vehicles are being subsidised and is urging ministers to tighten the rules, especially around mental health claims.
Well, joining us now in the studio is the Director of Public Affairs from the Adam Smith Institute, Maxwell Marlowe. Now, Maxwell, well, there are reports out all the time showing how taxpayers' money is wasted, and sadly we've become used to this. But I have to say, reading this morning on the train, I was blown away by some of the claims in this report. I mean, tell us some of the standout figures.
I've got so many reeling off my head, and it's quite amazing. So just for a bit of clarity, we had the former head of Motability Policy at DWP write this report for us. And, you know, he's pretty shocked by how bad it's got. We're talking up to, you know, £3.6 billion a year of GB News viewers' money going into quite an opaque charity, non-profit, government-backed scheme that if you have an enhanced mobility, claim on the welfare state, you could be eligible for a new BMW or a new Lexus or whatever else, and after 3 years, you can hand it back to them and they'll give you a brand new one as well. And as you were highlighting earlier, Miriam, you could even get a cash bonus from the charity in order to partake in this scheme. And this is all taxpayer money. And at 1.2 billion is actually just removal of many of the taxes that we have to pay if we want to drive privately.
This is absolutely bonkers, Maxwell, honestly. And so what happens? There's another interesting part of this report. What happens when there's money left over?
It heads right back into the reserves and gets funneled quite nicely into the pay packets of the people running it. The guy running, the CEO of Motability, is on a pay packet, I think, of around £750,000 a year.
What a scandal. What a scandal. It is shameless. These people are shameless.
And what the report highlights is that, of course, there is a good public interest reason for people who are severely disabled having specially adapted cars. I don't think anyone would disagree that that is a good idea. But the eligibility criteria has expanded so much that people are getting them for mental health complaints. And also, the report points out that most people in Britain, 75% of us buy second-hand cars. The average age of a car is 10 years old. I mean, mine's 16 years old, so that's kind of within the average range. And yet these are brand-new cars, more expensive than average, and around half of brand-new cars now, privately sold, are going to the Motability scheme.
Absolutely. I mean, when you look at who accesses these vehicles, only 12% are adapted for wheelchair use. And Motability got quite upset with us about this report. They did a big press release, and at the top of their press release, an image of a woman in a wheelchair. That's only 12%. There are people with acne claiming Motability. There are people with bad back claiming. And we've seen over the last few years, Motabilities from their accounts, a massive increase, and we're expecting it to go further because this government can't get a hold of welfare reform. So thank you, taxpayer. We'll see more of that on the roads nowadays.
Well, I've got a bad back. Maybe I'll get myself a Beamer next. How about that? It's just absolutely bonkers, isn't it? It really is. And what I was going to ask before I was blown away by that statistic there, who is in charge of overseeing these sorts of things? Because this is surely government oversight is necessary here when it's come. This is a government who's desperately trying to get on top of a budget running out of control. Who is in charge of this? Who is ultimately responsible in government?
In government, nobody. So DWP used to sit on the oversight committee for Motability. They've since let that lapse. So Motability meet regularly to negotiate with DWP, but now it's a completely independent organisation, basically. So it's quite staggering. I spoke to a Labour MP yesterday about this. They basically said, we all know this inside. It's basically just a subsidy for the car industry at this point.
I was just going to say, do you think, given the scale of the Motability purchases in terms of the whole car market, surely it's actually pushing up prices of cars, because taxpayer funding always does that, because people think, oh, this is somebody else's money.
Absolutely, and that's what we're seeing at the moment. It's also, Motability said we can't be issuing second-hand cars because of the second-hand car market at the moment, but much of which they supply, by the way, with these second-hand cars. But at the end of the day, this is a government-backed monopoly over provision of vehicles, and I agree with you, Miriam. I think this is a really noble cause. Fundamentally, it's just executed in such a terrible way, which is really having terrible effects on the car market and pushing up costs for people who can't access the scheme, fundamentally.
Is there any sorry.
No, I'm just sorry. I'm actually just gobsmacked. Carry on. I genuinely am. I just want to scream. I just want to scream. British taxpayers will be watching this show going, oh, my goodness, not only is there no government accountability, this is costing us billions of pounds. Most of it, I would say, is bogus, if I'm being honest with you. These people don't need cars for acne. Where does this end, this madness end? And what can we do about it? What can people do about this? Is it just a change of government necessary who's going to get on top of benefits bills? Is that what it is? Is that what they've got to wait for? Hope for someone to get on top of it all?
Well, I will encourage people to read the report fully, give it a really interesting look in, and then if you're really concerned about this, I think you should be. I mean, given the size of the bill for the taxpayer is about the size of the maintenance budget for schools, given we have a concrete crisis that's going into new cars on the road, write to your MP, write into GBNews. I think this is the right platform to voice his opinions, and even if they're Labour, because again, I spoke to Labour MPs yesterday, they're also concerned about this because they're actually worried about their boss and the bill coming down the line.
And the most tragic part of the report is that people who really are very poor can't actually afford to access the scheme because they can't afford the fuel costs.
Exactly.
So actually the people benefiting from the scheme are not even the poorest disabled people at all, but people who can afford to top up and the car that they're given. Well, Maxwell, thank you so much for coming in. You can find that report on the Adam Smith Institute website, and I would recommend reading it in full, perhaps when sitting down.
Yes. Oh, yeah, sit down, trust me, you'll need it. Or maybe sit down in your new Beamer. I don't know, maybe get this before we blow the whole thing up. I don't know. Good luck.
Enjoy it while it's up.
Yeah. Well, talking of cars, next we're going to be live at Goodwood Revival. But first, if you're in search of some holiday sun, here's the forecast.
You're looking happy.
Well, the forecast looks good.
So you've sorted the travel insurance then?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
It's a mostly settled picture across much of Europe. Occasional sunshine in places, otherwise lots of sunshine. And that's the story across Spain and Portugal. Mostly settled here, plenty of sunny spells, though we could see some showers affecting Barcelona, also parts of Nice. But elsewhere across Italy, the Adriatic coastline, all the way through into Greece, it should be mostly dry, settled, plenty of sunshine. And that theme will continue as we head into next week, along with the warm temperatures. Bye-bye.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Welcome back to Britain's Newsroom with Andrew and Beth.
Hello everyone, Patrick Christie is here.
I'm Michelle Duke, Britain's News Channel.
Access the stories that matter to you. Take the GB News family with you on any device. And as long as you have an internet connection. Tune in to GB News, anywhere on the planet or beyond. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m, only on GB News.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions. But every Friday night at 9 p.m, you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
isn't it?
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes and Co weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Welcome back to Britain's Newsroom, and the Goodwood Revival has returned for another year, aiming to recreate the glamour and excitement of the glory days of motor racing.
Well, the event recreates the glamour. Oh, it does. It does recreate the glamour and excitement. It really does. We wanted to say it twice. Well, it's the focus this year is on VE Day 80, and we're now joined by GB News national reporter Jack Coss in a lovely hat, I hope, Jack. Oh, it's back.
Yay!
We love to see it. Looking dapper, my friend.
Well, I feel like I just need to press on a little card and shove it in the top of my hat. I'd look straight out of some kind of American crime novel, I think. But here in the paddock at the Goodwood Revival, the atmosphere is just fantastic because we're surrounded by beautiful cars, we're surrounded by people who just adore them, and everyone wanting to take photos, and everybody, I would like to say, like myself, really making the effort to really get into the revival spirit, which this year is 1940s, 50s and 60s, as you were mentioning. Big focus on V-Day 80 this year. A short walk away from where I am now is the aerodrome. There's Spitfires there that people can look around. There's a model World War II kind of village. It's just absolutely fantastic, and everybody really making effort with the reenactors really getting into all to those kind of World War II uniforms. But here where we are behind me, you might be able to see the crowds gathering to just have a look at some of the cars from Jim Clark. Now, by 1965, Jim Clark was probably already one of the most successful and talented Formula One drivers. 1965 is when he won his second Formula One World Championship, and in the same year to win that championship, he won the likes of the Indy 500. You can see on some of the signs behind me as well, he won the Tasman Series, as well as winning the British and French Grand Prix. He drove here at Goodwood, still with Jackie Stewart, holds the joint fastest lap round here at Goodwood, and they've got 4 of his cars here today, which is unheard of. The first time 4 of them have all been together. We spoke to William Taylor. He's part of the heritage. He's the heritage manager at Classic Team Lotus. He spoke to us all about Jim Clark.
We have 4 cars here today. I say the Type 33, the 35, 32B and the 38. To have them all 4, they've never been together before. This is the first time ever they've all been at the same place at the same time, which is pretty incredible. They were crazy. Safety was obviously a different issue those days, but the thought of driving the Type 38 around the Indy 500 circuit at 170 miles an hour, it's incredible. It really is. The cars were so small, so light.
So you can just hear there, you've got to think of the skill that modern Formula One drivers today have to be crazy to be able to get into those cars and go those kind of speeds. But around them is all that safety equipment, fireproofing equipment. And so there's a little bit less of the risk taken out of it if there was to be a bad crash. But back when Jim Clark was racing, back in the 1960s, and when he started in his D-Type in 1958, there was no real safety, and taking those corners at high speeds and managing your car from mechanical failures and engineering failures, and just keeping it on the track in sometimes really difficult rainy conditions just showed the skill. And that's why this year, 60 years on from that 1965 World Championship, Goodwood Revival is celebrating Jim Clark and everything that he was and what a driver he was, because of course in 1968 he lost his life in an accident during a Formula 2 race at Hockenheim in Germany, showing really the dangers that you had to push the cars to. But he was so successful, often winning races by 30, 40, 50 seconds. And here at Goodwood Revival, as well as, of course, those celebrations around V-Day 80 this year, they're celebrating the legendary Jim Clark.
Thank you, Jack Carson. That's absolutely fantastic. I don't know if you saw a story earlier in the week, Alex, about in the Czech Republic, police have finally caught the phantom F1 driver. There's been this chap driving around in a Ferrari F1 car on the roads of the Czech Republic for a number of years. They finally caught him.
That's
quite a good story.
That is an epic story. I haven't seen this story, but I mean, how could they get... It just baffles me, doesn't it? They can catch you for everything else. If you speed a little bit too much, you accidentally drive off without paying your petrol, they'll catch you. But an F1 driver can get around unnoticed for weeks. It's
so
bonkers stuff, it really is.
I'm sure Sadiq Khan would get him.
With the big ULEZ bill, that would be. Well, that's it from Britain's Newsroom. Up next, Good Afternoon Britain with Tom and Dawn. We'll see you soon.
Is it Nightmare on Downing Street? Yes, Peter Mandelson, huge speculation. He wants to take the Prime Minister down with him. Will he be a thorn in the side?
And as the manhunt continues in America over Charlie Kirk's killer, we're talking about what really happened when Charlie Kirk went to Oxford and Cambridge University. We'll have all the details on that. You really don't want to miss it.
Absolutely, as America wakes up more on that manhunt too. So we'll be able to see perhaps what the FBI has in terms of new information over the course of the next few hours. It's afternoon in Britain, but morning in America. We'll catch all of that after the weather forecast.
spells, with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello there, good morning. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. Rain and strong winds eventually easing away across western parts of Scotland, leaving a day of sunny spells and showers across the rest of the country, but a lot of eastern areas will see a mostly dry day with sunny spells. Taking a look at the bigger picture, low pressure sits to the north of the country, bringing us in a westerly flow, and at times in that westerly wind it will drag in some showers. Now many central and eastern areas should see a mostly dry day, but even here into the afternoon we could catch 1 or 2 showers, but the bulk of the showers will be across western areas where they could be heavy at times. We may even see some hail, hear the odd rumble of thunder. Temperatures around about average for this time of year, highs around 19 to 20 degrees Celsius. Then to finish off the day, there's still a risk of showers, once again particularly across Scotland. Now there are going to be lighter winds, particularly around western coasts, but even here still it's going to be quite breezy, particularly if you do catch any heavy showers towards the end of the day. Fairly similar across Northern Ireland, northern parts of England, a mix of clearer spells and also some showers. Wales, southwest England too, we could pick up some showers, but central areas, parts of the south and southeast, most showers should be fairly isolated. Now across the southern half of the UK, once again we'll see a mix of clear skies and showers, and we've just got this longer band of showery outbreaks pushing into the far north. This could be quite heavy and blustery at times, once again possibly with some hail and thunder. So once again by the time we reach Saturday morning we could see quite a wet start across parts of the north, but elsewhere we'll see a mix of dry spells and also some showery outbreaks, and that remains the theme as we begin the weekend too. This heavy band of rain eventually clearing off into the North Sea. Fair few showers still pushing into western areas, these merging together at times to bring some longer, persistent outbreaks of rain. Once again, central areas and parts of the southeast will see the best of the brightness, but still a chance of a shower here. Highs once again reaching around 18 to 19 degrees.
Expect warm spells, with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
This is your chance to win a motorhome and cash in our biggest giveaway to date. Courtesy of Marquis Leisure, you could be the proud owner of this 2025 Benamar Primero. It comfortably accommodates 4 people and can be driven on your standard driving licence. Plus, you'll also bank an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash to spend on anything you like. Make sure you don't miss out. For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus 1 standard network rate message, or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB16 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 31st of October. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk
No,
now?
that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints. How many fingers have I got up?
About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m, only on GB News.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.